The story begins with our MC Aura farming by offering to buy this skill of hers that brings nothing but trouble. A stout lady finds it hard to believe that this young man would willingly buy her troublesome skill, Monster Attractor level 10, and would even go so far as to pay for it. The young man assures her that he's willing to buy it for the price of 10 million, so of course the lady easily grabs this opportunity. Well, that settles it. The young man takes both of the older lady's hands in his and deems the negotiations successful. A bright light emanates from their joined hands as the Monster Attractor skill is removed from her skill list. He hands over a fat wad of cash as payment, and also urges her to have her skills appraised at church just to be sure. Meanwhile, a small crowd has gathered around them, curious about this peculiar young man. The young man tells everyone that if anyone has any bothersome or useless skills, he'll buy them from them. He walks along the marketplace saying any skill level is fine, so they should just reach out to him if they have any more questions. And yes, this young man is the Collector, the protagonist of our story. How did he end up as the Collector? Let's rewind it to where it all began. You see, in this world, skills are blessings granted by God to people from the day they are born. As such, it has become an everyday occurrence and part of people's lives. In a small rural town, people live peacefully, each possessing at least 3 or 4 skills. 2 neighborhood ladies were chattering by themselves at the village well when a young boy approached it to get a pail of water. This kid is none other than the future Collector. Right now, he has one skill, his only skill, called Trading, which is currently at level 1. Once he has his pail of water, he takes his leave, and the ladies immediately get to talking about how awful it is to be blessed with only one skill, and even a useless one at that. The other even proclaimed how glad she was that her son didn't experience such. The first lady shushes her friend, saying her voice is too loud, while the little Collector continues to walk away, a little pissed, because he can hear them, you know? Just then, 2 other kids block his way, calling him the guy with the useless skill. These 2 runts start ganging up on our protagonist, telling him to stay out of the village, but of course the would-be Collector refuses to be bullied. He claps back, saying their skills are something only criminals would have. He's right, you know? The runt's skills include coercion, being smelly, strength, tailing, clairvoyance, and healing. The bullies are angered by his comment and don't hesitate to punch our hero, calling him nothing but his older sister's leftovers. Just like that, our kid walks back home nursing a cheek wound. He feels upset because even he knows he can't win against the strength skill. Speaking of skill, he can't help but think that no matter what skill it is, as long as it can be used, it's better than having a useless skill. He wipes off his wounded cheek before opening the door to their house, announcing he's home to his sister. A beautiful long-haired girl turns from her working desk to greet him. And she's definitely loaded with the best skills, ranging from appraisal and drawing to every school topic from memorization to fine arts. She's got it, and get this, they're all level 20. He looks over her desk, asking if she was in the middle of drawing something. His sister answers that she had just finished it, showing him a portrait of the 2 of them smiling together. Our protagonist merely looks at it, so his older sister asks what his verdict is. Well, it's good as always, and then he looks down as he shares that the other kids called him leftover scraps of hers again. His older sister immediately kicks up a fuss. How could they call her beloved younger brother like that? But it's true though, right? He goes on saying how she has 10 skills in the arts and sciences. Everybody in town has been saying that it's a waste of her skills to keep staying in this town. As for him, on the other hand, he only has one skill and it's not even useful, this trading skill of his. When he was much younger, he went to get his skill appraised. There, they discovered that his skills are trading. But the appraiser has never heard of such a skill before, so he also has no idea how it works. With that, he hands our hero the results of the appraisal and tells him straight up that he only has a single skill, trading. As soon as he got home that day, our boy tried using this trading skill of his using an apple. He stands right near the fruit exclaiming, "Trading, sell this apple." Of course, nothing happened. He immediately tells his parents that he tried using his skill again today, but unfortunately it didn't work. Both his parents sigh in frustration. What was the use of having a rare skill if he can't even use it? It's practically the same as being useless. They both didn't bother to hide their disappointment in him. His mother even went as far as to say how she hoped he would also have talents just like his older sister. Some kind of parents these 2 are. Our poor little hero feels even worse, and seeing his reaction, his older sister decides to step in. She changes the topic, reminding their parents how they have a lot of money saved up from her drawings, and suggests they buy a nice house in the capital. Upon hearing that, both their parents lit up because with just the 3 of them, they could leave our poor hero behind. But to their surprise, the sister tells them that she'll stay behind in the village with her little brother. What? Why would they? If anything, the 3 of them should just live together in the capital and leave her useless brother behind. Their mother even has no problem proclaiming that they shouldn't worry about him at all. Our would-be hero agrees with their parents. After all, he only has one skill and even he doesn't know how to use it, so there's no point in staying with someone like him. But his older sister doesn't think that way at all. In fact, she's even happy to be able to live with her precious little brother, which is pretty valuable to her. So now here they are, a year into living together by themselves. Our hero still has no idea how to use and activate his skills, while his sister urges him to take it easy. She suggests trying things out slowly and avoiding fights if possible. At the mention of fights, he flinched because how can he forget? The bruise on his cheek? Well, it's a good thing his sister has a pharmaceutical skill under her belt, no? With that, she hands him her special ointment. She applies this all over his bruises, instantly healing him. After checking, he can't help but comment on how jealous he is of her skills. He even says she should just give him at least one of her skills. If that were the case, she would have done so long ago if it were possible. Their conversation gets cut short when they hear knocks on the door. She opens it and sees an older man who tells her he'll be looking forward to her appraisal today too. With a smile, she tells him that she'll be at the village square. And no sooner had she shut the door than our protagonist asks if she's doing appraisals for the villagers again. She said that is so, but our little hero is not pleased with the way the villagers are taking advantage of her. He pouts, saying that just because his older sister has an appraisal skill doesn't mean they can keep asking for it without giving anything in return. She pats his head, smiling as she assures him that she's not going to abandon our would-be hero. Besides, she believes that his skill is highly valuable. Hearing those words gave him so much comfort because in this world where their parents and the villagers curse him for being useless, here's his sister, the only one who is on his side. This display of affection made him a little shy, so he told her not to pat his head too much. With that, she heads to the door with a smile, saying she might be home late since the mayor's relative is coming. He bids her goodbye, thinking that as long as he has her, he doesn't need anything or anyone else. Even when she was already outside, she kept looking over, so he had to shoo her away with a smile. Well, now that he has the house all to himself, he might as well start cleaning the house. If there's one thing his sister is not good at, it's cleaning the house. He starts picking up the trash when he sees the drawing she did earlier. Taking it into his hand, even he had to admit that it was a pretty good drawing of the two of them. Much later, night has already fallen. Our protagonist woke up from the sofa and he couldn't even remember that he had fallen asleep. He gets up and asks aloud if his sister has returned, but he is only met with silence. It looks like she's still in town, so he decides to grab a lamp and fetch her. After all, she may be older, but she's still a girl. He left the house expecting to meet up with her soon, but to his shock, the whole village is on fire. What? Why? What's happening? Before he realized it, he dashed straight to the village, thinking about his sister. Everywhere he went, there were piles of dead bodies on the ground. Simply put, it was a massacre. He even tripped over one of the strewn bodies and looked over to see that it was the two ladies and bullies from this morning. Seeing them in that state, our hero almost threw up because who would do something like this? Now, he's even more worried and determined to find his sister. Now that he thinks about it, he remembers her mentioning the mayor's relative. That's it. She should be at the mayor's house right now. Our hero makes a run for the mayor's residence, and even the entry yard has dead bodies strewn all over it. He goes straight to the front door and notices that it's unlocked, so he enters only to be welcomed by a couple more dead bodies in the entrance hall. Even the stairs are full of dead bodies with severed body parts and fingers pointing up strangely. Suddenly, he hears a voice from upstairs telling somebody else to stop what they were doing. That snapped him out of his reverie, smacking his face to get a better hold of himself. Was that the mayor's voice? If the mayor is still alive, then he might know where his sister is. The voice continues to cry out, questioning the perpetrator why they're doing something like this. Meanwhile, our hero literally steps over the dead bodies as he climbs the stairs, calling out to his sister. He tries to calm himself, chanting not to look down, and hoping against hope that his sister is still alive. He doesn't care even if he only has a single useless skill, and even if their parents and the villagers curse him. Now he hears the mayor's voice even more clearly, with him telling his assailant that he can give the village to them. Just then, another voice spoke and said they don't want a village that's already destroyed. As soon as he opened the door, the mayor's body flew right by him and slammed against the wall, all bloodied and battered. He catches a glimpse of the older man before he turns to the person before him. It was his sister all along. She welcomes him, but the latter is confused. Just what is going on? With a hint of mockery, his sister asks if he's referring to why everyone is dead. She approaches him and says she simply miscalculated. As it turns out, the mayor's relative has a pretty high appraisal level, so he found out that she has a plundering skill. Wait, what? His sister explains that she's been hiding it pretty well all this time, using her concealment and acting skills. Her brother has difficulty following all these revelations due to shock. What did she mean by plundering? But her sister continues on, saying it was about time she made a move anyway. Right now she motions to the pile of dead bodies, saying she plundered all the villagers' skills she learned through appraisal, so she's done everything she needs to do. There's no point in staying here anymore. Because of that, she ended up killing everyone, every single person in the village. He can't believe what he's hearing. Killed them? It's a lie. It's all a lie. Seeing her like this, fear starts to creep up on him as he stares at his sister's retreating back. No, this isn't his sister because he knows she's a kind-hearted person. Suddenly, she turns back to look at him with a glint of mischief in her eyes, making our hero stop mid-track at the stairs. This caused her to burst out laughing. She continues her way downstairs, telling him that she already knows he thought she'd kill him. She knows this because of her psychology skill and tells him not to worry because she won't kill him. At least not yet, because his skill is the only one she can't plunder. Wait, what does that mean? What does she mean by she can't plunder his skill? To this, she walks back to him with a smile, as expected of her little brother. That's a good question, and with that she hands him a book saying she'll teach him some good information about skills. There are a lot of common skills like strength, coercion, and detection, but for her plundering skill, it's something only one person can have at any given time. Simply put, it's a rare skill. Then, there's his trading skill, which is an even more rare skill. A skill like his can never show up again in the present or future and has never even manifested in the past. It's categorized as an only skill. He tries to chase after her, wanting to know more about an only skill when she remembers that he doesn't even know how to use his own trading skill. She approaches him and whispers in his ear how to use his skill. Right after that, she tells him that in her current level of plundering, she can't plunder any only skills yet, which is why she'll get out of the village and travel to raise her plundering level. And then, once she's able to steal his skill, she'll plunder his skill and kill him the next time they meet. Until then, she tells him to polish his only skill. Our hero tries to catch up to her, but she uses her leap, swiftness, and wind magic to get away, leaving him behind. He doesn't even have any idea about the skill she just used right now. And how does she know a lot about his only skill? Despite everything that happened, he refuses to believe that it was his sister. It's a lie. His sister is a kind person. If he goes home right now, for sure she'll be there. But the empty house is a testament that everything that happened just now was all true. All that's left of her is the drawing she made earlier that day. He can't help but cry, wondering aloud why she said she was going to kill him. Just why? Back to the present, the collector stares at the drawing his sister did, which he put on a locket. He continues staring at it until the other guy from the carriage strikes up a conversation, asking if that was his girlfriend. The collector answers that it was his sister, much to the dismay of the other guy. On the other hand, the collector still can't believe it until now, leaving the other guy confused. What is this dude talking about? Well, at least the collector clarified that he was just talking to himself. But still, in his heart, he wants to believe that his elder sister had a reason for doing what she did. She was so kind and blessed with so many skills, so why did she want more skills to the point of killing? And why didn't she tell him anything? There are a lot of questions he still wants to ask her. Even though her threat is there, he still wants to see her again and know what she's thinking, even if he ends up getting killed the next time they meet. All this time, he's been polishing his only trading skill to meet his sister again. If that's the only way the two of them can meet, then so be it. With that, he sets out for his next destination. It only took a short while for him to find a large building and enter it to find the right unit. After walking some more, he knocks on a certain door and introduces himself as the collector. He tells them that he'll purchase skills they don't have any use for, or the bothersome ones. The person from the other side of the door welcomes him, saying they've been expecting the collector. This is the story of the collector and his sister, whose lives have been transformed by skills, as well as the stories of various people troubled by their own skills. The customer thanks the collector for buying their useless skills, but the latter points out that it's no sweat and that he's more than happy to continue doing his collective service with them. With that, the collector makes his way around the market, announcing his collective services so the people can hear he's willing to buy any useless or troublesome skills they have. After a little while, he managed to buy 12 skills before settling for a break in a nearby pub. Now that he's seated, he notices how he has already gotten used to doing this kind of work. Looking around the neighborhood with children playing on the streets, he deems that this city must be peaceful. He takes his locket out to look at the drawn picture of him and his sister. So far, he's been buying and selling skills with his trading, and ever since his big sister taught him how to use it, he has made a living out of this skill collecting service. But the thing is, he still has no idea where to find his sister. Despite traveling around with his collection service, he thought he'd chance upon his sister by now. Just then, he hears a voice ask if he's the one doing the collection service. That snapped him out of his reverie as the collector looked up and saw an older man with floating books approach him. The latter asks to speak with him privately, leaving the collector a bit puzzled. And that's how the collector finds himself seated inside a luxurious home while drinking tea. The sheer size of the residence intimidated him, so he couldn't quite settle down. He turns to the older man, who is revealed to be the elder sage, and asks whether he truly wishes to sell all his skills to the collector. The older man confirms it, saying he wants all his skills to be bought, save for the memory skill. That's a lot of level 20 skills he got there for sale, of which the collector reminds the older man how he has quite a multitude of valuable skills. At the mention of that, the sage asks if the collector can see his skills. Our hero smiles and explains that he bought an appraisal skill long ago, allowing him to see others' skills at will. But back to the topic, the collector points out that any skill at level 10 is already considered valuable. But all of the sage's skills are level 20, which is on a whole other level. Of course, the collector says he can buy all of them, but he doesn't have enough money on hand. That's when the older man says he'll accept 100,000 for all of them. This made the collector pause for a bit, because even though it's beneficial for him, he needs to know the reason why the elder sage is doing so. The older man explains it's because he has already reached old age. All his life he spent it pursuing nothing but knowledge, believing that it was his natural duty for people who were blessed with the same skills as him. But as time went on, he began to question if doing such was enough. From there, he thought, why not just cast aside all of his old self? As such, he decided to start over as an adventurer this time around. The collector listens to the old man intently, wondering if the latter is really set on becoming an adventurer after retiring. Anyway, as the sage was saying, he heard about that. Not only does the collector purchase skills, but he also sells them. Before anything else, the older man confirms whether his skill slots should have as many open spaces as the skills he got rid of. The collector is surprised that the older man knows this, though he is pleased that even the older man knows about the skill slots. You see, the number of skills one can have is determined by the number of skill slots they are born with. Generally, there are around 2 to 5 slots per person. However, money alone doesn't guarantee someone can acquire all the skills they want. With this, the collector asks if the older man is eyeing getting a couple of skills as well. To this, the latter said he wants all the skills one needs to become an adventurer. Skills such as swordsmanship, physical ability, brute force, and recovery. He also wants skills like concealment and tailing, emphasizing how he wants the last two to be at high levels. Thankfully, the collector has all the skills the sage wants, and his buying price is enough for him. So that seals it. The collector takes both of the elder sage's hands in his as he buys off all of the older man's skills. Just then, the front door opens, making both of them turn to the sound. A little kid pokes his head through the open door, calling out to his grandpa. The collector instantly sees this kid's skills, ranging from archery to brute force to reaction and keen vision. These are all skills ideal for an adventurer. The boy asks his grandpa if he's done with his talk since the kid says he'll be off on his first adventure tomorrow. The collector and the elder sage only look at him before they both stand to approach the boy. The sage approaches his grandchild, reminding him that being an adventurer is a dangerous job. But the boy brushes off his grandfather's worrying. As if to remind him, the boy claims that the only reason he wanted to become an adventurer in the first place was because of the picture books about adventurers the older man read to him every night. The sage's brows furrow because now he has come to admit that he regrets doing that. Yet he remains proud and turns away from his grandson, saying he's against the path the boy chose. For that, he forbids his grandson from returning to this house ever again. The boy turns to the collector with a smile and apologizes on behalf of his grandfather. He may be grumpy, but the boy assures our hero that his grandfather is kind. The older man quickly tells his grandson not to say unnecessary things, which the boy dismisses again with a smile. With that, he bids the older man goodbye, saying he loves him. Looking at how the two interacted, the collector notes how the grandfather-grandson duo has a pretty close connection. With the boy gone, the sage asks the collector if he saw his grandson's skills and what he thought of them. Oops, just when he thought he could get away with it, the collector didn't expect the older man to call out for it. But he can't help it. Appraising someone's skill has become a habit of his. Well, he tells the sage that his grandson's skills are pretty outstanding and well-suited for being an adventurer. The older man only nods and looks away, muttering about how he hopes his grandchild doesn't become too reliant on his skills and end up doing something reckless. Since their transaction is done, the collector makes his way back to the town. Looking back, it was a pretty heavy expense, but at least he still got plenty of skills. Be that as it may, he can't help thinking about the elder sage and his grandchild. The older man seemed happy enough, but the collector still wonders why the elder sage gave up all of his skills to become an adventurer. Plus, there's also the add-on for concealment and tailing. The collector is well aware that concealment and tailing are two skills not suited for adventurers. If anything, thieves are better suited for those. Now he's worried that the older man would commit a crime. There's just no way, right? That would be quite unusual, especially for someone blessed with such skills. As soon as he thought of that, the image of his sister flashed in his mind, and once again he was humbled. What would he know about that? He's not blessed with such skills. All this thinking got him stopping in the middle of the street as he looked up and wondered if he should leave for tomorrow. The next day, in a certain unnamed forest, a party of adventurers traverses the path carefully, not knowing that a shadow was closely following behind. This party is none other than the one where the sage's grandson is a part of. He marches happily ahead of his crew members, unlike the others who fall behind him, one of whom is even worried. Before long, he sees their target, the monster egg for the job collection. He made his way for it carelessly and was about to sack the eggs when the mother monster appeared behind him. He turns, horrified at what's before him. Just as the shadow was about to jump out and intervene, lucky for them, one of the party members cut down the monster in one fell swoop. The grandson thanks his party mate, with the other one chuckling, proud of what he just did. The only girl in their group now looks relieved because they managed to complete the job without any incident. The boy turns to the forest, mentioning to his party mates how he felt someone was watching them just now. Or maybe it's his imagination. Little did he know there really was someone watching them from behind the trees, and that someone heaves a sigh of relief since his cover is not blown. The figure sets out again to follow the party when suddenly, a hand taps his shoulder. It's the collector. And yes, the one following the group is none other than the elder sage, with the collector asking how his grandchild fared in their first mission. Now the sage has the necessary skills for an adventurer, like swordsmanship, physical ability, brute force, and recovery, save for his memory, which is the only one he retained from his original set of skills. The older man turns to the collector and is about to ask why he was there, but the latter simply says he wanted to check on the elder sage. After all, it would worry him if the skills he sold were abused. Still, the sage can't believe it. He couldn't even sense the collector even though he also has tailing and concealment both at level 7. To that, the latter explains that he used the skill he sells. He sold 7 levels of concealment and tailing to the sage, so he still has 23 levels left of the 2 skills. The old man never knew that the collector could partially transfer skills, to which the collector says he's only able to do that because of a skill called management. It's a skill that adjusts the level of skills during an interaction, and has the ability to store skills outside of the slots. It's thanks to his management skill that he was able to adjust the level of the skills he collected, and also carry around more skills that will fit in his slot with him. The older man turns away. He didn't know a skill could be used like that. As he walks away, the collector asks if the sage plans to follow his grandson around like this. The older man answers that as long as his body still holds itself together, he's determined to watch over his grandson each and every day. The collector's taken aback by his answer. That's a bit too overprotective, don't you think? Why is the elder sage willing to go this far for his grandson? The older man sits on a nearby boulder and admits that he's doing it to atone for his family. Several decades ago, back when he was much younger, the sage admits how he was so consumed by his own skills that he neglected his family. He spent hours and hours reading books, expanding his knowledge, and after reading all that was available there, he still wanted more, believing he was worthy of having it. After spending the whole day reading, he goes home and is welcomed by his wife and daughter. And yet, he walks past them, simply because he has no interest in them. He was like that for many years, and merely established a family for the sake of appearances. The sage was hell-bent on fulfilling his thirst for knowledge. Then there came a time when his daughter shared that she was about to get married, but it all fell on his deaf ears. He didn't care about his wife or his daughter's family at all. Since he had already read every book there was in the country, he set off on a long journey to neighboring countries to learn more of what the other countries had to offer. One day he finally finished all the books there were. Instead of feeling accomplished, he felt something was off. He was wondering what to do next when it finally occurred to him that he was blessed with all these skills, and if his thirst for knowledge was finally quenched, what's next? He realized that nothing happened after that. All this knowledge, yet what is this for? He goes to his desk and sees letters from his daughter. If this knowledge is not for him, then surely it's for someone precious, no? He opens the letters and finally reads them. As soon as he did, he decided to return to the country. He finally makes it home one rainy day, announcing his return at the threshold, but there is no one to welcome him. As he walks inside, his own daughter is surprised to see him. She starts glaring at him immediately, asking why he even bothered to come home at this point. She relays how her mother and husband already died from the epidemic, and that it was only she and her child left. But who is she kidding? Her own father won't give a crap about that anyway. To her shock, the sage went down on his knees and apologized to her. Even he can't help but cry at how foolish he was as a father. Seeing him like that, his daughter says he can't do much for her since she's also dying. However, if he truly wants to atone for his sins, then the least he could do is to be there for his grandson. With that, the sage walks into the next room with his daughter telling him to protect her son. The young boy calls out to his grandfather as the older man takes his small hands into his. Shortly after, his daughter passed away. Still, the regret from neglecting his family for years never left him. What he's doing at this point is still not enough for atonement. Still, he has already decided that he'll dedicate everything he has to his only family from now on. The collector asks if he's willing to do that even at the expense of selling off the skills he was blessed with. The older man nods in confirmation. If anything, the one skill he needs right now is the one that allows him to remember the faces and the time he spent with his family. This is why his memory skill is all that he needs. The collector is surprised and unconsciously touches the locket with his sister's drawings at the mention of families' faces and his time with them, because he too suddenly remembers the time he spent with his sister. Surely those instances are things you don't want to forget. The collector confirms with the sage if he still has a spare skill slot, because in reality the younger man has a rather special skill he's been saving. But if it's the older man, then he doesn't mind selling it to the sage. The collector adds that this skill will enable the older man to watch over his grandson until his death. What? This is the first time the sage has heard something about this. Does the collector really have a skill like that? Then it would mean that the skill will be expensive, right? The collector continues that this skill is pretty unique and will be sold at level 50. With such a high level, the older man would have to give up all his wealth to afford it. But he didn't even get to finish his sentence because the sage was already looking at him with determination. By now, the collector should know what the older man's answer is, right? Well, that seals the deal then. The following day at the city square, the grandson's party is gathered together, curious about this new member who will be joining them today. According to the boy, this person said he really wants to join their party, which left the other two members wondering why. Well, even the boy has no idea why, but it's better for adventurers to have more allies, right? The collector sits at a nearby bench, listening to their exchange, when suddenly the boy cries out that their newest member is coming. A young boy shyly walks up to them, apologizing for making them wait. He introduces himself as Lou and promises he won't cause trouble for the others. The party members only stare back at him before they start laughing and breaking the tense atmosphere. What's up with the way he talks? He's like an old man. Even the boy says Lou sounds like his grandfather, but whatever, because now he welcomes Lou to their party. The collector looks back at their group with a smile, saying how he seems to have done a pretty good job at joining his grandson's party. You see, the skill he sold to the sage is called Youthful Mask. It's a rare skill that only elves possess. At level 50, those who use this skill can appear 50 years younger than their original age, but it just works on their appearances though. The elder sage didn't really regain his youth since it's only his appearance that has become much younger. The collector didn't expect to hear such a deeply personal story, but since the elder sage found the right skill, he's just happy that everything worked out for the older man. With his work done, the collector resumes his travel and along the way, makes a mental note to restock on Youthful Mask. Just then, he sees a girl trip and drop her basket of flowers a few feet ahead of him. The poor girl accidentally stepped straight into the canal, so the collector helped her up on her feet to check if she was okay. The two were locked in a gaze before the girl hung her head low, apologizing and thanking him. She starts coughing as she says so, assuring him that things like this always happen. However, her flowers are all soiled now, but she still needs to sell them. The collector says the flowers still look fine enough to sell, leaving her a bit surprised. But she's even more surprised when he says he would like to purchase all of them from her. He reiterated that he wants to buy all of her flowers, something she still can't believe, so she had to ask if he was being serious. When he said yes, the girl thanked him and started wrapping the flowers for the collector. While she's busy doing so, the collector sees she has a pretty troublesome trio of skills: bad luck, sickliness, and weak constitution. Throughout his skill collecting service, he has seen a lot of people's skills. But this girl right here? It's pretty rare to find such a nasty combination of skills. But then again, he thought that even purely negative skills have uses in unexpected places. For that, he made a note to stock them at his collector service. Just then, the girl speaks, snapping the collector back to reality, as he listens to her say that she's glad because her little brother and sister can eat their fill today. Once he hears that she has siblings, he can't help but flash back to a certain memory he has with his older sister. Back then, he remembers seeing her still up, making him worry since she hadn't slept yet, but she assures him that she was just drawing pictures to sell, apologizing if she had woken him up accidentally. The younger collector approaches her, feeling bad and wishing he could help earn money. What this young girl said just reminded the collector how he and her sister used to struggle a lot too. He produces a thick wad of cash, alarming the girl as she starts waving it off. She can't accept that much. But the collector insists, given how it wasn't even half of what he got. He adds that he made a bit of money today, saying he just wants to share his good fortune. Well, if that's the case, the girl gladly accepts his payment. As soon as he hands him the money, he tells her the deal is sealed, with their hands glowing as soon as he says so. The girl also saw that, asking what that light was, and the collector casually told her that it was just a bit of a good luck charm. She thanks him for it, but the collector says he should be the one saying thank you instead. With that, he watches the girl walk away, adding that he's looking forward to her future business because he just sold her a new skill. Good luck. On the other hand, he acquired all 3 troublesome skills he used to have. The activation condition for his trading skill is that he needs the consent of the other party and monetary compensation. She might think the money is too much, but on the collector's end, he actually feels a little bad since he paid a cheap price for 3 skills. This is why he sold her good luck to make the difference, hoping that she'll like it. As for these flowers in his hands, they're still a bit dirty, but he notes how they still have a pleasing smell. Now that he thought about it, maybe he should try bringing flowers next time as a gift for his friend. Just like that, the next day came, and the collector busied himself in the market looking for things to bring to his friend. Necessities are a must, and since it's getting colder, he figured having medicine on hand would also be ideal. In the end, the collector may have bought quite a lot for his friend as he carries the bagged items in both hands. Just then, someone calls out to him. It's the lady from whom he bought the monster attraction skill the other day. Oh yeah, this was his first customer when he got into town. He asks her how things are lately, and she happily shares how the monsters have stopped coming ever since then. Because of that, she was able to leave town and stock up on ingredients. In line with that, her dream of opening her own diner has come true. She tugs him along, and just as she said, the diner will be on the first floor of her inn. Well, that's great to hear. But the collector's sentiments were overpowered by the lady's voice. She can't help but thank him for collecting that troublesome skill. Her genuine feelings of gratitude reached him, and as always, he's just happy he could help. Since he's already here, she also opened up about how she's looking for some staff, suggesting the position to the collector. In fact, she believes he'd look great in an apron while serving their customers. She happily puts the job flyer on his things, even though he turns the job offer down, seeing how he's already busy enough as it is with his collector service. Well, that's a shame. The lady turns and waves him goodbye, saying she'll just have to offer the job to someone else then. Once she's gone, he checks the flyer and goes on his way. A part-time job, huh? Maybe he can offer it to the friend he's about to meet. He quickly scratched that idea out, knowing this friend of his isn't suited to places with people. Just then, he sees the flower girl from before and she's still selling flowers. It's the unlucky girl from the other day. Two kids approach her at the same time, and as soon as they were in front of her, they started bickering over who gets first dibs on the flowers since one claims he got there first. But the other counters that he has the money for the flowers. She pats both of their heads after giving them halves of the bouquet, praising them for doing such a good job on their errands. The collector remembers just now that this girl said she's looking after a little brother and sister. He approaches her and asks if he could buy a bouquet. The girl's face instantly lights up. It's him. It's the buyer from the other day. The collector is surprised that she still remembers him, and of course she does. She was so happy that he bought her flowers back then. He can't help but comment in his mind how hardworking she is, and it makes him think that she's a good fit for dealing with customers. She hands him the flowers, which remind him of the flyer the lady from before gave her. Naturally, the collector gave this to the girl, who got pretty excited at the prospect of having a part-time job. He briefly explains that he just happened to get a copy of the flyer and assures her that it's okay if she turns it down. But that's the thing, she would actually love to do it. In fact, she's looking for a job right now. Wait, she is? The girl affirms and beams because not only did her horrible asthma finally clear up, but she's also not falling or bumping into things as much. The collector only stared but didn't bother telling her that the reason for that is that he bought her troublesome skills of bad luck, weak constitution, and sickliness from her. At times like these, the collector is reminded again just how amazing skills can be. Well, it's about time for him to leave since he needs to go before the sun sets. The girl is surprised to know that he's leaving, and with a smile, he says it's to visit a friend. He already has his back turned when the girl calls out to him asking if it's alright for her to know his name. After all, he bought her flowers, and now he even gave her the opportunity for a new job. He smiles and says that he's simply called the collector, and that he's just a mere traveling peddler. With that, he finally walks away as the girl stares at his retreating back, wondering if they will ever meet again. In the middle of a vast nowhere where mountain ranges are as far as the eye can see, everything is practically covered in a white blanket of snow. Many of the trees have shed their leaves, just as the collector patiently traverses this rough mountain trail, struggling to do so even if he's already using some of his skill products. Soon enough, he sees a log cabin and greets a long-haired man who's busy chopping firewood. The collector hands him the goods he bought from town, while the other man hurriedly runs over to him to help him with his things. That's when the other man noticed the bouquet of flowers. That's pretty cute. But the man knows this isn't the collector's doing. Did a woman do it? He breaks into a laugh as he asks the collector this. But this long-haired man is right, though. After all, the bouquet came from the girl. This put the other man off a little, as he hoped his friend wouldn't turn out to be some creep. But frivolities aside, the long-haired man pulls the collector as he sits on one of the tree stumps. He breaks into a smile, asking for the usual from the collector. And you know what? He thinks it might go well this time. The collector smiled. Of course, the gifts were just an added bonus. The usual is what he came for in this secluded cabin anyway. You see, this man is a longtime regular of our protagonist. He'd even go as far as to say he considers him one of his few friends. As for the world and everybody else, they call this man the unskilled. The long-haired man asks the collector to use his skill on him, which the latter agrees to. The collector closes his eyes, and as soon as he opens them, he activates his appraisal skill, while the other guy sits patiently. Our protagonist makes a face, and that alone is enough for the man to know what the verdict is. The collector apologizes, but the man just brushes it off. What is he even apologizing for? This is beyond the collector's control. The man gets up from the tree stump and heads to his cabin, saying he'll just have to keep working harder then. If anything, he's been considering doing some art lately, and he even carved a few figures and offered to give some of his work to the collector. Our protagonist grabs one of the carved figures in his hands, and after a beat, he asks the other guy, "Won't he stop this already?" He continues, saying that 1 out of 1,000 people is born unskilled. He already said this before, right? The collector lays it hard on him. This guy doesn't have any skill slots at all. This is the reason why the collector can't sell him any skills, and he'll never be able to awaken any skills as well. Before he can say the next sentence, the other guy beats him to it, so his efforts are wasted, right? The man refuses to do so, saying he won't give up on awakening his own skill. Hearing him say that, the collector is a little bit blinded again by this man's intense passion. If anything, the guy still has the same intensity in his eyes as the day they met all those years ago. Many years ago, before he became the long-haired, muscular man that he is today, he was just a small boy. If there's anything different about him, it's the fact that there's a defiant look in his eyes, which probably stems from his experience. He met the collector one day after hearing the latter calling out to the people that he would buy their unneeded skills. The little boy calls out to our protagonist, asking him if he will throw out the skills he collected. If he's going to do that, then the boy says he should just let him have those skills instead. The collector is startled by this gutsy kid. It's not every day people ask about the skills he collects after all. Anyway, why would this kid even— oh wait. To the collector's surprise, this kid has a blank. There aren't even any skill slots on him. As if to confirm what he already knows, some random kid from the street calls the boy skill-less. This other kid starts calling him inept and tells him that he should stay out of town. But the smaller boy wasn't even intimidated. He fires back, saying his skills just haven't awakened yet, believing that you can get skills with hard work. But the bigger kid says that's impossible. He insists that the boy is inept, which explains why his parents abandoned him. The smaller boy argues that it's possible. If he trains hard and secludes himself in the mountains, he's pretty sure his skills will awaken soon enough. With that, he stomps away, dragging the collector into their petty fight, claiming how the latter's useless if he can't even give him any skill. He vows to get a skill, just you wait. Did that rowdy kid really seclude himself in the mountains? The collector wonders if that kid really did what he said he would. There's just no way, right? Still, our protagonist makes his way to the mountain just to be sure. Lo and behold, that gutsy kid really is training hard to get his skills. Despite the snow and the late night, the boy keeps swinging his stick. He huffs, muttering to himself that he'll keep swinging this stick for 100 times a day. If he keeps doing it, maybe a skill like swordsmanship or brute force. Heck, he'd even be okay if intuition were to manifest too. He really said out loud with his whole chest that if he works hard, he can awaken a skill. This boy's tenacity stirred something in the collector's heart, making him drop his lamp. Looking at him training so intently, our protagonist doubts whether it was okay for him to call out to this kid. If anything, it made him remember how he started to collect people's discarded skills with his trading, so he could meet his older sister. In doing so, he also used those skills throughout his travels, like speech, acting, appraisal, and even eternal youth, to name a few. Over the years, he has handled a lot of skills that, before he realized it, he may have forgotten the spirit he once had back in the olden days. The boy was startled by the sound of something crashing, looking around to see if someone else was in the area with him. With that, he decided that to meet this boy where he's currently at, our protagonist will remove all skills from his slots and will only maintain the necessary ones like management, eternal youth, and appraisal. The collector picks up his fallen lantern and approaches the boy. The latter is on guard but relaxes a bit when he sees the familiar face of the collector. It's that man from earlier today. The collector introduces himself and explains why he is there. He was simply worried for the boy, so he went around looking for him. The boy isn't happy that the collector came to see him because he's interrupting his training. If he was just going to make fun of the kid, then he might as well beat it. The collector stutters and can't explain himself fully. It's no surprise because all this time he's been reliant on the speech and acting skills, so his words aren't coming out as easily. He remembers his frustration as a kid back then, so this time he tries talking to the kid again, saying that if the boy happens to awaken a skill, he won't be able to prove it's true without an appraisal, right? For that, the collector offers to appraise him for him, asking if the boy is okay with him coming over to do that. The next year, the collector came back as promised, but much to the boy's shock. He didn't expect our hero to honor his word. What an odd one this guy is. While he's there, the collector also appraises him, only to discover that the boy still has no skill. But the kid is undeterred and continues practicing. Before long, the kid outgrew the collector. The next time they met, our protagonist even cared for the now young man when he got sick. Before long, the collector is looking up to him, as not only has the boy grown taller, but he also looks incredibly older than the former. Back to the present, the now muscular man turns and asks the collector what's up after noticing the latter was spacing out. But before our protagonist can answer, the man launches into his story on how he beat an intermediate monster just the other day with a single swing. Isn't that amazing? The collector remembers how it used to take a whole night for the man to beat a single monster, so he still remembers that. Just like that, 50 years have passed since the collector met this man. Obviously, he's not young anymore. Our protagonist can't help but wonder if rooting for this man's wish would end up with him in a situation that would kill him. Of course, our protagonist doesn't want that to happen, which is why he decided it's time to stop him now. Just when he was about to speak up, the man cried out happily that he was a step closer to awakening his skill. Once he has his skill, he'll become a beacon of hope to all the unskilled out there. Well, seeing him like that, the collector really doesn't have the heart to stop the guy, so he can only show support for his friend. The man turns to the collector and breaks into a smile, saying the latter is a terrible liar. Later that day, a blizzard enveloped the whole village. The collector checks in at a local inn, mulling over how he couldn't stop his friend again. He's still worried about the man because the human body is weak, so he's sure it won't bode well for his friend. Since our protagonist was seated at the counter, the bartender struck up a conversation asking the collector if he was also stuck because of the blizzard. Our protagonist says yes and adds that he was visiting a friend who lives in the mountains nearby. Wait, did he say a friend living in the mountains? Oh, so he must be referring to that strange Gramps, right? The bartender said he had heard about the old man a lot from other travelers. The bartender shared that the travelers tell stories about some buff old guy fighting monsters. His friend does stand out, doesn't he? Anyway, the bartender told the collector that he should stay out of the mountains for now because some vicious monster showed up. Even the country issued a warning. Despite that, some adventurers went to the mountains and ignored the warning, though. The collector asked if the monster really was vicious, and the bartender said it was some sort of bipedal white giant. The collector takes a gulp of his drink, thinking that it must be a yeti. If that's the case, then his friend can beat the monster no problem. That's when the bartender told him that the monster was something even bigger. It was 3 times the size of one. From what he heard, it's a giant that can breathe cold air. The collector slams his payment on the table and hurries out the door. Somewhere else in the snowy mountains, the group of adventurers stands behind the collector's friend as the man taunts their giant enemy. He's excited since this is his first time seeing such a huge monster. And this was no ordinary monster indeed, it's a frost giant. The adventurers are overcome with fear, so the collector's friend took it upon himself to deal with the monster. Despite the frost giant being far more powerful, the man seems to be even more excited to fight such an enemy. On the other hand, there's our protagonist, running through the biting cold and snow to go to his friend. Ordinary people wouldn't even dare to challenge the frost giant since it's a gigantic monster that's top class among the giant tribe, so for his unskilled friend to battle it, he's sure it would end up badly. A party of adventurers can't even handle one frost giant, so what can his unskilled friend even do in the face of such power? But knowing his friend, the collector has a hunch that the man would probably challenge it to try and awaken his skills. Darn it, despite using the skills he has in his inventory, the collector still couldn't move fast enough. But up ahead he can already see 2 signals. One is the frost giant, but who is the other one? The collector arrived on the scene just in time to see his friend suffer a direct hit from the monster's attack. His friend got thrown into a nearby trunk, so the collector rushes over to him asking if he's okay. Despite being bloodied, the man told the collector not to interfere. This is his fight. He's still holding on to the belief that if he beats the monster, then he'll be able to obtain a skill. The man takes a deep breath before letting out a battle cry, enough to shake the whole mountain and even make the frost giant itself flinch. It was just a moment, but the man took it as a sign and grinned. With that, he runs straight to the frost giant with his sword and jumps straight into the monster's mouth with the latter readying his icy breath. The man manages to cut down the frost giant, but the monster manages to get in one last hit, striking the collector's body with so much force that he is sent flying to the snowy fields. Both combatants fell at the same time, with the monster covered in its own blood. While the adventurers stay huddled together, they continue to look from a distance and see that the frost giant isn't moving. The old man dealt a fatal blow to the monster, but speaking of, where is the old guy? The collector kneels right in front of his bloodied friend. The man is panting heavily from his wounds, but he's still smiling, asking the collector if he saw that. An unskilled man actually beat a frost giant all on his own, but the collector paid no mind, telling his friend not to speak anymore. He's more concerned about the grave injuries his friend has, but the man says it's fine. Since they're already here, he asks the collector if he could do it for him one last time, to check his skills with appraisal. The collector holds his friend's hand and agrees, and after a beat, the man asks what the result is. The collector congratulates his friend, saying his skill is roar. With what little strength he has, the man manages to laugh, reaching his hand out to the collector's crying face, saying how much of a terrible liar he is up to the very end. Just like that, the frost giant is dead, the adventurers made their escape, and the collector carried his friend's body back to his cabin. The collector buried him and went to the back of the cabin, where he found a log that was partly carved in. His recently passed friend carved "inept man" on the log. Looking at the item, the collector couldn't help but break down and cry again. Did his friend carve a name like this by himself? Our protagonist grabs one of his friend's sharpened tools and starts carving something on the log. His friend wasn't an inept man. The collector knows and watched him do his best all his life. He says aloud how his friend was a wonderful person who didn't let himself be defeated by fate. The collector used the log as his friend's gravestone, adding the word "outstanding" to the already carved "inept man" from before. Our protagonist spent a while kneeling in front of his grave, and after a while he got up and said he'll bring his friend more flowers once spring comes. Just like that, winter ended, and at the first sign of spring the cabin remains untouched, but there are already flowers on his grave. 2 pairs of feet were seen at the man's property, and these passers-by were surprised to see a cabin so deep in the mountains. Then they finally saw the grave. One of the passers-by, a girl, read what was written on the gravestone: "Outstanding inept man." The girl burst out laughing. What an odd thing to write. It's a bit ridiculous, right? She turns to her companion, whom she calls elder sister. And true enough, it is the collector's elder sister. In this world, there are things called skills, and our protagonist trades those skills as a collector. Right now, he's down in the dumps, sitting by himself at a local diner. Before he could stop it, the image of his recently passed friend flashed into his mind. He hangs his head lower, muttering about how this is bad. He needs a change. As if God or some divine entity heard him, the lady from before called out to him. She welcomes him, thanking our protagonist for visiting her diner so soon. He says that it's a given, seeing that her diner has been open for a few days already. Still, the older lady thanks our protagonist for taking the time and dropping by her little business. After all, this place is only made possible thanks to him. She would love to stay and chat more, but the collector understands she has her hands full at the moment. He says it's okay and he didn't want to take more of her time. The lady says they've been short-staffed, but just recently, a hard-working and earnest kid joined them. Right when she said that, the lady called the newcomer, Violet, asking her to come over. A pretty girl with a spring in her step suddenly appears. The girl walks happily over to them, dish in hand, when she finally realizes who she's serving. It's the collector. The latter looks at her, looking to see if she really was that flower salesgirl from before. But then again, he remembered he had given her that job flyer from before. The glow-up is real because he almost didn't recognize her just now. The collector asks if she's already used to the job, which she says she is. Then she hands him her order, steamed buns with herbs. The collector thanks her, but Violet is looking at the other customers who are eating hearty meals. Compared to them, the collector's meal is pretty basic. She suggests he try their Salisbury steak for their lunch menu, but he just tells her that he'll order that for next time since he just got back from a long trip. Well, if that's the case, Violet didn't push it any further. She walks back to the kitchen, but not before looking back at the collector's lonesome table one more time. After eating, our protagonist starts walking around town thinking about how life goes on as usual, even when someone dies. Since he's already done with his skill collecting service for the day, he's thinking of getting some flowers as an offering on his way back. But the flower salesgirl must have closed up shop, no? Not 1 second after thinking that, the collector bumps into Violet, who is still selling flowers. She can't help but comment on how they've been bumping into each other that day. He's more surprised that she's still selling flowers in the evening, to which Violet says she does to make a bit of extra money. As for the flowers, she grew them in a garden at home. The collector heaves a sigh of relief, saying he needed to get some flowers for a friend. She notices the somber aura around him, so she takes this chance to ask if he has had dinner yet. Though surprised, the collector tells her that he hasn't eaten yet. Well, her mom has a cultivation skill and raises some pretty good vegetables back at home. With that said, she asks the collector if he wants to have dinner at her place, huh? He's not following what she's getting at, and that's when Violet tells him that maybe he'll cheer up if he eats something good. She can't help but notice how he looked really depressed earlier that afternoon, which shocked her. He's amazed at how perceptive this girl is. The collector has done so much for her, which is why she wants to repay him in some way. She warns him in advance that their house is small and shabby, but since he's already moved by her sincerity, the collector takes her up on that offer. Later that afternoon, just before the sun sets, they head to her house. On the way, they talked about things in general, and she couldn't help but notice how he's such a great conversationalist. In his line of work, he needs it. Besides the fact that he actually has the skills needed for it under his belt, thanks to his skill collecting service. Just like that, they arrived at a bit of a rundown and modest house. As they entered the building, he noticed a lot of vegetation planted in their front yard. Thanks to his stocked night vision, he can see that the vegetables are in great condition and that the overall garden is wonderfully tended. Meanwhile, Violet announces at the doorway that she brought the collector along with her, asking if it's okay for him to join them for dinner. An older woman's voice can be heard, welcoming her. If she had known that they'd be having a guest, Violet's mother says she could have prepared something to make for a better reception. Then there's her little brother and sister, curious if this older brother is the collector their big sis has been talking about. And that's quite a bag he got there. The collector introduces himself and humbly greets them, while Violet introduces him to their small family of 4, consisting of her mother, her little brother, and her little sister. After exchanging greetings, her mother urges him to take a seat while she prepares their dinner. Violet volunteers to help, leaving the collector with her 2 siblings. The little boy approaches the collector excitedly, saying how their older sister said the latter was the one who introduced Violet to her job. The collector smiled as he said he did, while the little girl asked what he did. Our protagonist simply tells them that he trades and collects unneeded skills. The little girl's voice rises in excitement, causing Violet to look their way. Meanwhile, her younger siblings are already asking if the collector would buy their skills from them. Actually, they still don't even know what their skills are since their family is poor, and the free group appraisal won't be available for a few years. The collector turns to their busy mother first before facing them again, and asking if they would like to get their skills appraised for free. The kids' eyes twinkled as they grabbed this opportunity, but their mother was not quite into it, looking over Violet as she said so. The collector knows that if these kids have negative skills like their older sister, then they could get shocked at the result of their appraisals. However, from his perspective, the 2 have pretty decent skills. The little boy has grit, fleet-footed, and stout as his skills. His sister, on the other hand, has calculation, presence detection, and intimidation. The collector whispers to their mother, assuring her that the 2 kids' skills are outstanding. With that said, it's okay to tell them what their skills are, leaving the older lady relieved. So while Violet and her mother were preparing dinner, the collector played with the young ones. And Violet? Well, she was today years old when she found out that the things the collector was collecting were actually skills. Her mother tells her that she's not that blessed with her skills. However, the older lady assured her that she doesn't need to worry anymore, seeing how Violet's asthma has also calmed down lately. On top of that, Violet also noticed that she doesn't bump into things as much. All of that happened when the collector bought all the flowers from her the first time they met. For some reason, she also remembered him giving more than double the money, too. Could it be? Just like that, a hearty dinner is served. Everyone settled down at the table, including the collector. He takes a bite, and as soon as he does, he feels comfortable, despite it being a simple dish. He's not surprised because he knows the dish is flavored with a pack of love. It isn't anything like what he knew. Ironically, the delicious food served before him reminded him of how harsh his parents were to him and how his sister was the only one on his side. Violet quickly notices him zoning out, so she asks him if there's something he doesn't like. The collector says the food tastes delicious, resuming eating as he said so. After dinner, the collector spent more time with the kids, to the point that it was getting way too late for them. They were yawning and exhausted from talking too much today. Their mother asks if they're ready to get tucked in, and the collector offered to do that for her since the older lady still has some cleaning left to do. He says he's got some stories from his work and travels that would do well as bedtime stories for the kids. She took him up on that offer, so the collector and the kids headed to the bedroom where he started to narrate his experiences. But right when he was about to start the next story about the dragon, the boy asked if they could ask the collector for a favor before he left. Both kids move closer as the boy asks if the collector can buy their skills. They're well aware that their family is poor, so they're hoping that if they can sell their skills, they can make their whole family's life a bit easier. The collector stares back at these two. They may be young, but they treasure their family so much. It even made him feel a little jealous. He pats both their heads and explains that what he collects are unneeded skills. As long as the two develop their skills, they can use them for their futures. However, if there comes a time when they really need money, then they can just talk to him. After he put them in bed, Violet's mother approached him, thanking him for tucking the kids in. He says he's happy to do it, which reminds her of how he also treated her eldest, Violet. Well, she notes that Violet has become more cheerful lately, and she feels bad because as a mother, she thinks all she does is cause trouble for their children. With that said, she asks the collector if he would be willing to buy her skills. She wants to get a bit of savings so she can make her children's lives easier. The collector, on the other hand, is speechless. She just said the same thing her kids had said a few minutes ago. He pauses for a bit before telling the older lady that their home is so happy that it dazzles him. In his profession, he has seen a lot of families. Then he mentions how skills have the power to change a person's life just by having them. He accepts trading requests from people who are troubled by their skills, but he doesn't buy skills to give people a one-time payment. Money can't buy a happy life after all. The older woman understood and didn't press on. It did make her happy to hear that their little family looked happy. The collector even admits to her that he's jealous of it. Well, if that's the case, then why not just become part of their family? The older lady even tells him that Violet has a lot of good qualities. Huh? At the mention of her name, Violet comes rushing, embarrassed at the way her mom is setting her up with him. Violet blushes, telling her mom not to say weird stuff since she's bothering the collector. Well, her mother thought she'd be happy about it, so it made Violet even more embarrassed. Watching them like this, the collector's a little surprised that she can be pushy when she's mad. He smiles as he's about to exit their home, saying he feels jealous of them. He tells them that being with such a happy family cheered him up somewhat. With that, he walks out of their home. Sure, it felt good, but for him, there's something uncomfortable about the warmth. Just then, Violet grabs his clothes. She can't look at him directly, but she tells him not to pay attention to what her mom said. Still, he's also welcome to their place anytime he wants, so he should feel free to rely on them if he's not feeling well. She promises to make herself useful to him when that time comes. Seeing her sincerity, the collector can only grit his teeth, thinking that a warm home is too dazzling for him. Still, he thanked her for the offer. If anything, he feels like a moth drawn to light in the dark. It makes him wonder if it's all right for him to be charmed by it and long for it. This time, the collector finds himself at the back of a traveling wagon in an open field. He hitched a ride on a carriage, thinking it would be a nice change to do business in the east this time. The other travelers on board strike up a conversation, saying the area is pretty calm and peaceful. Some monsters occasionally pop up in the area, but they're weak enough for the villagers to handle by themselves. The collector agrees, and since there's nothing else for him to do, he decides to check on the skills he has in stock. Just then, their carriage suddenly stops, prompting the other passenger to ask what's wrong. Their carriage driver shouts at the person in front of them to move away, angry at the dangerous stunt he pulled. The person in front of them is a long-haired young man, panic-stricken, begging them to come to his village. The carriage driver explains that they're set to go far to the east along this road. He can't make a stop and asks the young man to move aside. This time, the young man becomes even more frantic, telling them that a swarm of monsters is about to appear in his village, asking them for help. Huh? A swarm of monsters? In a peaceful place like this? They almost scratch their heads because how does this kid even know that? The question catches him off guard, but he tells them that he has a skill that's something akin to premonition. The traveler on board the carriage finds this kid sketchy. It almost feels like he's lying. The collector, on the other hand, is already interested. The carriage driver has had enough of the kid's shenanigans, saying they don't have time for his fake premonitions. With that, he hurries the carriage along, forcing the young man out of the way. The young man starts cursing aloud. Why doesn't anyone understand? Meanwhile, the collector watches him as their carriage speeds away, curious about the boy's skill. What was that? He's seen hundreds if not thousands of skills as a collector, but he has never seen anything quite like this. He uses his appraisal skill and sees that the young man has a strange skill called Return by Death, besides his swordsmanship and tenacity skills. This is the first time the collector has ever seen a skill like this. With that, he tells the carriage driver to drop him off here. As for the young man, he has become hopeless, believing that he failed this time too. But his lamentations got cut short when he heard a voice asking if he could tell him more about the thing he mentioned. The collector introduces himself as what else? The collector. Meanwhile, the young man says his name is Ripley. He remembers the collector was on board the carriage earlier, but before the latter can answer, Ripley thanks the collector because he's the only one who listened to him. He immediately tells the collector that in a few minutes, an earthquake will strike the region, which will cause the entrance to a cave that seals monsters to collapse. From there, a swarm of monsters will attack his village. The collector quietly listens to Ripley's story, thinking that it's only natural that people refuse to believe him, seeing how this is such a peaceful place. As if Ripley read his mind, the former adds that he knows he sounds crazy with the story, and that the collector may not believe him. To that, our protagonist answers that he believes Ripley. On his side, he explains that he has a skill called appraisal due to his work. However, he has never seen a skill like Ripley's in his line of work. Ripley's Return by Death is similar to the collector's trading. It has no precedent in the past or present since it's an only skill. Ripley is shocked to discover that the other also has an only skill too. The collector wants to know more about Ripley's skill since he may be able to help. After a beat, Ripley agrees. He starts by saying, Return by Death means that when he dies, time across the entire world rewinds to 24 hours before his death. No one else remembers this except him. As of now, the world has repeated 4 times already. Wait a minute, the collector recalls the activities he did in the last 24 hours. He arrived at the town where the carriage to the east departed 24 hours ago. After staying the night at a local inn, he boarded the carriage this morning. So does that mean he has already done all of that 4 times already? Ripley affirms and says yes. Furthermore, he adds that the skill activates when he dies, dragging the entire world into an endless loop. The collector finds it hard to believe, but they continue walking. Soon, they encounter an intersection with a signpost in the middle. Ripley says following the road north leads to his village. But the collector still has a few more questions. How does Ripley know that the world is the same? Is he traversing various possible worlds? Ripley relates how during his second death, a child from the village knew the name of a flower he had taught her the first time. However, that girl doesn't remember where she had heard it, which confused her as to why she knew the flower's name. So, to test things, Ripley told her about the flower's toxicity. On his next death and comeback, the girl knew not only the flower's name but also its toxicity as well. Like the first time, she couldn't remember where she learned it. The collector asks if knowledge carries over, and Ripley says yes. Furthermore, his skill isn't about moving or traveling, it's about returning through death. The collector is having a hard time processing all these pieces of information, including how the world has already repeated 4 times, and that knowledge is passed on from time to time. But what about skills? If someone were to use appraisal or plunder during the 24-hour loop caused by Ripley's death, they might notice something is off with their skills, right? There's no way the collector's sister would overlook something like this. It got him thinking that maybe, if he stays close to Ripley, his sister may notice something off about the world and come here. There's a chance that he may be able to meet his sister at last, but he had to cast that thought aside as the ground shook the next moment. Unlike him, who lost his balance somewhat, Ripley stood firmly. He says it's starting again. Our protagonist has a hard time standing up because he can't find his footing. Is this the earthquake Ripley was talking about earlier? Ripley narrates what happens next, saying the cave's entrance has collapsed again just now, thus unleashing the monsters. He starts crashing out, wondering if he'll die again this time. And does this mean the villagers would also die? There's just no way they can defeat that horde of monsters with just the 2 of them. Seeing Ripley distraught made our protagonist remember that this young man had died 4 times already. He thought that it would be far too cruel to sacrifice Ripley's spirit just so he could see his sister again. Besides, if the world continues to loop because of Ripley's skill, even the future where he continues looking for her sister may not exist, since it's imprisoned beyond his reach. The collector has decided. He calls out to Ripley, saying he'll give the other man a cut-rate sale with his merchandise skills so they can defeat those monsters together. True to Ripley's words, the entrance seal to the Cave of Monsters is broken, and a great horde of them emerges from the cave. Meanwhile, somewhere near the cave, Ripley rummages through his pockets for some cash, and feels bad that this is the only money he has. But the collector says it's fine for this time. With that, he sells Ripley a few offensive skills like advanced swordsmanship, perception, and physical ability. Their hands glowed upon touching, sealing the deal as Ripley's new skills manifested on him. With these, he can finally stand up to the swarm of monsters. He can finally overturn fate and save his village. Seeing how determined he is about saving his village, the collector had to ask the unthinkable. Has Ripley ever thought about running away instead to avoid dying? Ripley calls bull on that option. He would never run away from his only skill. He claims that if you can wind back fate, then he wants to save his village from the monsters. The collector kept quiet, but in his mind he just hoped this young man's ideal won't come back to bite him in the end. But more important than that, Ripley tells him that the cave is just ahead. The place is already swarming with low-class and intermediate-class monsters, but he has already spotted a high-class one. The 2 make their way to the root of the problem and see a couple of monsters lying in wait inside the cave. Ripley dashes ahead, while our protagonist hangs back for a little bit. If Ripley dies this time, the world will rewind again. The knowledge and skills will surely be passed on. This means that if he notices the skills he sold to Ripley are missing from his inventory, he'll know something serious is going on even if he can't remember what happened after the rewind. Ripley continues to charge forward, slashing every monster that comes his way. He's even come to the point of enjoying this whole takedown, amazed at the advanced swordsmanship skill. Plus, the perception skill also makes it seem like Ripley's enemies are standing still. The collector says he'll deal with the low-class monster using his stocked skills so Ripley can take care of the intermediate ones. Our protagonist readies his fire magic skill while Ripley runs ahead, and just as suddenly he stopped mid-track. Before him were 2 intermediate monsters, but Ripley held his ground. Before one of them could attack, Ripley cut them down swiftly. The other one lunges toward him with its claws out and manages to scratch Ripley's arm. But a wound like this isn't even a scratch compared to dying. From the back, the collector asks if he's okay, saying he'll join Ripley since he's already done dealing with the low-class monsters. Ripley continues to cut the monsters down, saying there's no problem. He has become confident, telling the collector that with these skills he got from the ladder, he can take on any enemy easy peasy. At last, he can finally change his fate. But Ripley didn't even get to finish the sentence as a bigger monster appeared and beheaded him in one swipe. Ripley's humble village is shaken by an unexpected earthquake. The citizens find that odd, even Ripley too, as he stands before a little girl. This is a pretty peaceful place, so an earthquake like that is definitely out of the ordinary. Before long, one of the villagers points out that something is coming from the mountains outside the village. They didn't have to wonder for too long once the monsters appeared and started wreaking havoc in the village. Ripley himself got bitten by one. And this is the first time his skill was activated. He died without understanding what was going on. Before he realized it, he heard his name being called. As he realized he was in the middle of sword practice, one of his colleagues asked what he was spacing out for. As for Ripley, he was shaken, looking at his hands. Didn't he die just now? He asked them what time and day it is, then bolts straight to the village square. He cries out to get everyone's attention, telling them that monsters will soon swarm the village, asking everyone to flee. But they were just confused. Monsters? In a peaceful village like this? What made him say that? Ripley tells them that his skill has finally activated, his return by death. This is him coming back from the future. But instead of heeding his warnings, the townsfolk are more focused on Ripley's mysterious skill. They tell him that he's been in the village the whole time. There's no way he came back from the future. Surely that must be a dream, right? But no sooner had they said that than the ground started to shake, quickly followed by a swarm of monsters. Ripley watches the whole town get wiped out by the monsters, and even he suffers a grave injury. He feels distraught at how he couldn't make a single person believe him. His wounds started to hurt so badly, and it made him wonder if he was going to die. Will Ripley keep repeating this forever? Again, Ripley zaps back to 24 hours ago, during his sword practice. His colleague from before asks why he's spacing out. Meanwhile, Ripley carefully holds the handle of his wooden sword. Suddenly, he starts swinging it around. Advanced swordsmanship, perception, and physical ability are all here. He cries out an apology to the collector for losing his focus and messing things up. Meanwhile, the collector is at the back of the carriage making small talk with the other passenger about how peaceful the area is. Their conversation from before repeated itself, and just like before, he decides to check on the skills he has in stock. But to his shock, some of the skills are lacking in their respective levels. That's strange. The stocked skills are off. Some of the combat skills have their levels lowered a bit, including the hard-to-find advanced swordsmanship. The other passenger noticed the troubled look on our protagonist's face, asking him what was wrong. Our protagonist plays it cool, saying he was just thinking about business. In his mind, he's racking his brain, wondering how this happened. Suddenly, he hears a voice from outside asking the carriage to stop. Ripley shouts from the front, asking the collector if he's on board. He goes on about how he lost his focus and ended up screwing things up. Our protagonist is confused because he just heard someone call out to him. The collector uses his appraisal and sees some of the missing skills on this strange young man. The latter introduces himself as Ripley, promising the collector that he'll do better this time. The latter quickly disembarks from the carriage, approaching Ripley about his skills. So Ripley had to take it from the top and explain everything again. They make their way to the cave entrance, which is still intact, just as the collector asks for clarifications about the whole scenario. So this is Ripley's fifth return caused by the time loop, right? The latter affirms. But our protagonist finds the story hard to believe. Still, the young man has all of the missing levels from the collector's stocked skills. So Ripley's story checks out. Well, if he wants to escape a past loop by working with Ripley, then he figured it's best to cooperate with him again this time. Like clockwork, the ground starts to shake, as the collector wonders if this is the earthquake Ripley was talking about. Unlike him, Ripley has a determined look in his eyes and a firm footing, his hand ready to draw his sword. A moment later, a swarm of monsters appeared, with the collector using his stock fire magic to fight off the small fries. Seeing how that's the best course of action in this scenario, Ripley runs ahead now that he has found the cave where the monsters came out of. He remembers the first time he found the cave back then, noting how the seal must have broken during the earthquake. He was scared and worried given how he wasn't able to get any of the villagers to believe him last time. But if that's what's going to happen, he took it upon himself to take down the monsters before they could even attack the village. Back to the present, Ripley stands before them undeterred. He admits that back then he died by recklessly charging into the cave. But now, he cuts down the monsters with ease using the advanced swordsmanship he bought from the collector. Taking them down is much easier now compared to before, but he makes a mental note of the high-level monsters in the area. He also made it a point not to be reliant on the skills he bought from the collector anymore, just as a loud thud hits the ground. The monster that killed Ripley from last time appeared, but this time the young man is determined not to return by death again. The collector quickly appraises the giant monster before them. That's a pretty high-level monster from the cave. Is this the one that caused Ripley's death? Our protagonist readies a couple of stocked skills like Earth Armor and Instant Force so he can just jump in and help Ripley anytime. But it looks like that won't be necessary, as the latter cuts down the monster's limbs easily, vowing to defeat the giant as he unleashes a flurry of attacks. Ripley proclaims that he will change his and the villagers' fate before dealing the final blow. With that, the giant monster's body crumbles to the ground, while the collector watches the young man's back. Ripley talks about his only skill, proud to say that he finally managed to change his fate. Back at Ripley's village, everything is normal, with people milling about. He and the collector stand together, watching the people go about their business. This just means the world has begun to move normally again, right? The collector still can't believe it, given how he has no recollection of it. To that, Ripley smiled and told him how the collector also helped him fight last time. If anything, he's just glad that he and everyone else in the village are saved. But as soon as he said that, Ripley fell to his knees and then began to hold himself. He may have saved himself and everyone, but in doing so he died over and over 4 times. He gets up and confirms if the collector buys skills, then proceeds to ask the latter to buy his only skill, Return by Death, from him. Ripley knows that it's a troublesome skill, but with the collector's management skill, he knows the latter can store a skill outside his skill slots, right? At this point, the young man doesn't even care about the money anymore, while the collector wordlessly takes his hand. The collector tells him that he will buy Ripley's only skill, Return by Death, for free. With that, the deal is sealed. But instead of the usual brightening of their hands, there was just a spark. Our protagonist lowers his head since it was no use after all. He explains to Ripley that he actually tried to do this before, but with his level 1 trading, he can't exactly buy Ripley's only skill. This made Ripley distraught. Suddenly, he grabs the collector by the collar, saying that as long as he has Return by Death, he will have to live his whole life unable to die. He starts to crash out, enumerating the instances of his future suffering. Does this mean that if he dies from an illness, he'll have to repeat that agonizing last day for all eternity? Or is Ripley supposed to kill himself every day to rewind time and keep himself alive like that? His loop would just continue on, dragging the whole world with him. Both men were suddenly quiet, and it was Ripley who broke away, apologizing because none of this is the collector's fault. But the latter begs to differ and gets up. He apologizes to Ripley, saying this is because his trading skill is too weak. Only skill is stuck at level 1, and so far there's no tale of one ever leveling up. Our protagonist feels sorry for Ripley because even he can't begin to understand the young man's fear and anxiety over his only skill. When Ripley faces death again, the agony of looping through death awaits him. Besides, if times across the entire world keep repeating themselves, someone is bound to notice it soon enough. If someone wanted to exploit Return by Death and capture Ripley, the poor young man would end up being killed again and again whenever it suited his captor. All this thinking got the collector wondering aloud why he even became a collector in the first place. If anything, it's pathetic. Our protagonist says the reason he works as a collector is to hone his skills and meet a certain someone. If only skills have a concept of levels, then it also means they can definitely reach level 2. Our protagonist apologized to Ripley, saying he can't help right now, but he promises to raise his trading skill to level 2 and purchase the young man's Return by Death. Honestly, the collector has no idea how long it will take, but if he gives up while there's still hope, then his friend who kept fighting until the bitter end would laugh at him. But level 2, Ripley says there's still a lot he doesn't know about his Return by Death, but he can't exactly complain. The two part ways, with Ripley waving to the other man as he asks if the collector would lend his strengths again if the former ever feels like his own skills are getting him down. As usual, the collector tells Ripley to call him without hesitation. The collector faces forward, still reeling from such a skill called Return by Death. As usual, only skills never fail to surprise him, but thanks to that, time has started moving normally again. The days of doing his work as the collector and searching for his sister continue on. After all, if time doesn't move forward, he says there's not even a hope of meeting. The collector is back in the city again. He even admits to himself how pleased he is to be back at the familiar place, as he finds himself more relaxed when he's in town. A local greets him, saying he hasn't seen our protagonist in a while and asks if he's not working today. Our protagonist answers that he's not because today he's summoned by one of his regular clients, producing a letter as he says so. On the way, the collector notices an arena poster and before long finally reaches his destination. He opens the door right in time to see two men wrestling, with the fallen man crying out how no one can beat Leondold. This man named Leondold turns and his face lights up as soon as he sees the collector. The latter meets his client, commenting on the wrestling ring at Leondold's residence. Well, he expected nothing less from the arena champion Leondold. The champion says it's because he wants to keep honing his skills, which is why he's happy with the monster attraction skill he bought from the collector. It was really helpful. He's the person the collector regularly sold monster attraction to. But more importantly, our protagonist is more curious about the person standing right next to the champion. Leondold pushes the other guy forward and says the latter's name is Congus. Actually, the real reason why Leondold called the collector is to help Congus. To our protagonist's shock, Congus suddenly grabs his hands and begs him to let him buy the cooking skill for his wife. He'll even pay whatever it takes. Meanwhile, the collector asks Leondold what the meaning of all this is. Didn't they have an agreement to keep his skill sales discreet? You see, selling skills often causes issues, and if people know about it, some start demanding a certain skill, which is why the collector prefers to keep this fact low-key. The champion breaks out into a smile. Come on now, it's fine if he shares it with his best friend, right? It's not like the collector can do anything about it now, so fine. He decides to hear what Kongis has to say. The three of them are seated in the champion's receiving area, while the champion himself serves them drinks. Kongis takes one of the mugs, looking at it longingly, saying how it's been a while since he has seen a proper drink. Hearing him say that made the collector puzzled, prompting him to ask Kongis what he meant by that. With a sigh, the man begins by saying he just got married recently and has a lovely wife. Kongis makes money as a fighter and adventurer, so his wife is doing her best as a housewife, you know? With that, he starts shedding tears as he says he wants to give her the cooking skill since she's not that good at that chore. If cooking's the main concern, the collector points out that she can manage that without a skill. Couldn't she just learn it from someone or through practice? In all honesty, it would be way cheaper than buying a skill from the collector. Kongis slams his fist on the table, stressed because his wife is way beyond help. Not only does she not measure ingredients, but she also mistook a ladle for a tablespoon. And that's not all. She also adds sugar to salty things, thinking that would fix it. And worst of all, his wife insists on doing it all homemade. Like, yeah, he's super happy she put so much love into it, but poor Kongis has had enough. It's awful. It tastes really bad. There was a pregnant pause before the collector asked him the obvious. Had he told her about all this? Is he joking? Kongis can never say all of that to his lovely wife. Leondold and the collector can only frown, with the latter thinking that nothing will change at this rate. Finally, Leondold adds his 2 cents, saying he understands the collector's sentiments, but even he's a little shocked that his brave best friend can actually be defeated by a single meal. Kongis knew that merely talking about the matter wouldn't make it believable, which is why he brought the actual food in question today. The man produces a simple lunchbox and presents it to the collector and Leondold. The champion chimes in that he hasn't seen what's inside, but admittedly, he's also scared. The collector remained quiet, but to see the champion scared over something like this, then his meal must be really quite something. He uses one of his stocked skills, intuition, and eyes the boxed meal. Surprisingly enough, the skill is screaming at him to run away. Leondold grabs the lunchbox cover and opens it. As soon as he did, a foul stench emanated from the meal, with Kongis scolding him from the back. He should have aired the room before opening it. Meanwhile, the collector activates multiple stocked skills to protect himself, namely poison resistance, barrier, and endurance. As for Leondold, the poor man experienced the full brunt of the stench, dizzy and teary-eyed as he asked just what the hell this was. The lunchbox is oozing with tentacles, different mushrooms, frog feet, and a hand from God knows where it came from, all wrapped up in a murky, dark liquid. The three of them just stared in silence at this thing before them. No, but really, what is this? The collector asks. While Kongis says his wife calls it overflowing bliss of paradise, the champion quips that it's better called overflowing horror of hell in his opinion. The collector follows up with another question, asking Kongis if his wife actually ate this stuff. The latter says she does, and she even eats it as if it's nothing. Leondold couldn't believe it. He had to be joking, right? The champion stares at the meal warily before grabbing a fork. Well, maybe it just looks and smells awful, but who knows, maybe it doesn't taste bad, right? To that, our protagonist reminded him that he just called the meal disgusting not a minute ago. But whatever, man. Leondold thinks that at least he won't die from eating it, right? With that, he takes a bite of the meal from hell, then starts to tremble. The collector calls out to him, and the champion is cowed on his feet. It was that bad. Before he could collapse, Kongis grabbed him by the shoulder. The latter already knew this would happen because, in his case, he's already gotten used to it over time. The collector uses his appraisal skill and sees that Kongis has a level 13 poison resistance. It's a pretty high level, which is not really surprising considering Kongis eats crap like this every day. They taped the lunchbox from hell and finally got talking. The collector shares that even for an amateur cook like him, this just goes beyond being bad at cooking. It's on an entirely different level. With that said, he thinks that maybe it's some kind of negative skill. He asks Kongis if he has ever seen his wife's skill certificate. Kongis tried asking for that, but his wife keeps refusing him. The collector knows that his wife should have gotten a skill certificate at the age of 10, and it's pretty strange how she refused to share it with her husband. Well, he can always use his appraisal skill on her as their last option. The collector notices that Leondold has come to, still looking groggy, but he has an idea. They'll just throw a party here, at his place. He tells Kongis to bring his wife along so that the collector can take a look at her skills. The latter adds that if it's not a skill issue, then they can just turn it into a regular cooking class. Kongis couldn't thank his best friend enough for this. Since they mentioned cooking, the collector adds that he knows someone who is very knowledgeable in that area. Should he invite her too? It's an instant yes from the champion, saying that it would be a big help. The next day, a girl hurries over to the collector. It's Violet. She apologizes for having him wait for her, but our protagonist says she shouldn't. After all, he's the one who invited her on such short notice. Meanwhile, Violet's a little nervous because this is her first home party, although she knows it might turn into a cooking class. The collector assures her that she'll be fine. After all, when he got a taste of the food at Sumire-san, the older lady at the diner, he knew he could ask for Violet's help. As for the latter, she's just happy that the collector is relying on her, though she's hoping she could actually help when the time comes. The two of them made their way to Leondold's place, and what welcomed them was his place, full of people eating and having a great time. As soon as they arrived, the champion turned his attention to the two, saying Kongus should be arriving soon. As if on cue, they hear Kongus's voice apologizing for being late, saying it took him a while to find the right outfit for the event. Right beside him is a pretty, long-haired lady, scolding him a bit and saying he should be more polite. The collector, Violet, and the champion were stunned because Kongus wasn't joking. His wife really is lovely. She greets and thanks them for always looking after her husband before introducing herself as Celeferi. So she's the one who cooked that horrifying meal, and the champion can't help but comment how his best friend really lucked out on Celeferi. Isn't she too good for Kongus? The latter fires back that he and his wife married for love. She agrees and even shares how she's the one who fell for him and pursued him. Just then, Kongus turns to the collector and gives him a knowing nod. This is it. The collector uses his appraisal skill to see what's behind her disastrous cooking. As their group parted ways, the collector kept his eye on Celeferi. So she has a level 18 creativity skill and a level 25 tastelessness skill. Now the collector gets it. Celeferi's creativity level must have taken things in a bad direction. That, paired with her high level of tastelessness, resulted in that horrible dish. Meanwhile, the girl in question happily fetches a slice of bread on her plate while the collector continues appraising her. Finally, he sees her third skill, but he thinks this one needs to be discussed in private. After everyone has eaten, with Celeferi having a little drink by herself, the collector approaches her. She sees him and was about to converse with him, saying Kongus has told her about him, when the collector leaned closer to whisper in her ear. He tells her he needs to talk to her about her skills, asking to meet him outside when she's free. She drops her drink from her hand with the sound of glass catching everyone's attention. Celeferi is visibly shaken, with Violet asking if they're okay. The collector calmly tells them that he'll clean up the mess, but from the side, Kongus looks at him with worry. Outside, the collector waits patiently, and soon enough, Celeferi joins him, hunched over and scared. First, he apologizes for calling her out like this and explains that because of his work, he possesses appraisal, so he knows about her skills. Celeferi quickly got on her knees and begged him not to tell Kongus. Does she really want to hide that? The collector already knows she has a high-level cosmetic skill. In fact, it's even higher than her tastelessness skill. At that level, she could completely transform her face. He calmly asks her if she's hiding a burn mark, which made her pale. How does he know that? Again, the collector explains that due to his profession, he also has a skill called clairvoyance. A tense moment of silence passed between them, before Celeferi finally stood up. Since the collector knows everything already, there's no point in hiding anymore, right? This time, she starts to tell her story. When she was younger, Celeferi had an accident that left terrible burn marks on her face, and these ones are the type that last forever. It became her insecurity and the very reason why she hated her own face. Because of this, she never even considered falling in love until one day. While she was moping by the river and looking at her face, her hat got swept away by the wind. It was picked up by a young man who not only handed it back to her but also called her a cool lady. It was Kongus. Cool? Her? How? Kongus points to the burn marks on her face, saying, "Those are pretty cool. They're like life's badge, at least in his opinion." Kongus may no longer remember that time, but for Celeferi it was everything. No one has ever said anything like that to her before, and his innocent bluntness captivated her. Celeferi tells the collector that Kongus saved her. For a while, she thought he would still be his friend as she was, but ultimately, she ended up falling for him. She decided that no matter what, she wanted to be with him. So now Celeferi begs the collector not to tell her husband about her cosmetic skill. Without it, even if he tells her she looks cool, Kongus will never think she's cute. The only thing the collector asks is if she's going to keep wearing that mask forever. Sadly, it reminded him of his own sister, who had been wearing a mask the whole time they were together. The gap between truth and lie will only grow wider with time, and if Kongus learns about the truth later on, his shock may even be greater. The collector feels bad laying the truth on her, especially since he's an outsider, but Celeferi understands where he's coming from. If anything, now that they talked about what she was hiding, she feels a little relieved. Even though she never thought about it, it looks like the guilt had been weighing on her this whole time. The collector was just about to warn her when the door opened, and Kongus tells them he heard everything. Poor Celeferi's biggest fear has come true. She stands paralyzed, fearful of an approaching Kongus. But before he can reach her, she makes a run for it, only for Congus to tell her that the one thing he hates the most is to see her suffer. She shouldn't underestimate him. He pulls her in for a hug as he tells her that he loves her dedication. Congus explicitly tells her that he will love her mark, cooking, and everything. This made Celeferi start to cry, while Leondold and Violet, along with the Collector, bear witness to their love. The Collector thinks that maybe to accept someone as they are is what love really is. As for the skill issue, he suggests they talk about it at another time and give the husband and wife some space. Fast forward to the next day, the Collector is back at Sumire-san's diner with Violet serving him cake. So what happened with the cooking? He takes a bite of the strawberry first, saying it's just as Violet imagined. As for Celeferi's disastrous cooking, it's all because of her high-level cosmetic skill. Congus suggested to her that she should just remove that skill. She doesn't need to wear makeup in front of him. She counters that she wants to look beautiful for him. But then again, she also wants Congus to taste delicious food. Ever since their talk, he tells the Collector and Leondold how she has become clingier, making her even cuter in his eyes. Well, since the skill is strong but disadvantageous, the Collector said he'll be charging Congus for it instead of reclaiming it. The latter's more than happy to pay for anything for his lovely wife as he hands him the payment. The Collector tells Violet that he's going to buy back the skill after eating. Honestly speaking, he's preparing himself to listen to Congus's lovey-dovey rambles about his wife, but never mind. Violet smiles. Isn't it nice to be loved like that? The Collector feels doubtful, but she says it is. He even got scolded for not understanding a girl's heart. After finishing his meal, he made his way back to the champion's place to reclaim the skill. Honestly speaking, he thinks it's okay to leave Celeferi's cosmetic skill at level 1 though. At that level, she should be able to get past it within a year if she tries. After all, he thinks that both cooking and life are better with a little spice. It keeps things interesting sometimes. In this world, skills are blessings granted by the gods. They aren't exclusive to humans because even monsters have their own skills. Skills like Eater or Mind Link are two of the exclusive skills monsters have. As the Collector himself, this obviously piques his interest. The only downside about this is that there's no way he can negotiate with a monster that attacks and doesn't understand words. Currently, the Collector finds himself in front of the ocean, near a small fishing village. Looking at the place, he thinks it would be a good idea for a change of scenery and to do business in this area. He gets to it, announcing his services so the villagers can hear him. "Buying unwanted skills," he cried. He walks around telling people he'll buy any unwanted skill, so they should feel free to stop by. Soon enough, people start approaching him, selling their unwanted skills. He can't help but notice how this place is great for business because of how lively the village is. After some time, the Collector decides to get some early lunch, as he feels his stomach start to grumble. He walks along the coastline looking for an ideal spot to eat, when he notices a lone building that stands out among the rest. Not only does the structure tower above the others, but it also has a pretty unique design. What is that? The Collector finds a nice place to eat where he's served seafood dishes. Of course it's seafood, he's by the sea. The server asks if this was his first time in the fishing village, and before the Collector can answer, the young man is already boasting about his hometown's great food and view. The Collector quietly munches his food before asking the latter, "What's that building on the edge of the village?" At the mention of that, the young man's face lit up in recognition. Actually, that building is a house, and from what he knows, a weirdo named Therapy lives there. A weirdo? People claim that Therapy can talk to monsters. Now this definitely has the Collector's interest. There's no way she can do that, can she? Well, the young man's not too sure, but that's what Therapy claims. The server suggests to our MC that if he's so curious about it, he should just go and check it out. Therapy is a pretty quirky lady, but the kids think she's cool. If what he said is true, then that would be pretty advantageous for the Collector. Hopefully this time he can communicate with monsters, and it opens up more new options for him. If he can obtain rare skills, then it might help him find his sister. He wipes his mouth with a napkin and decides that dropping by Therapy's house is a worthy visit. After he finished his lunch, the Collector made his way to the lone, towering building. He stands before Therapy's house in awe at how much it resembles a fortress. This one has a different architecture from the rest of the buildings in the village. He knocks on the door, then pulls his fist back just as quickly because the door is making such a strange sound. Since nothing happened, he decided to use appraisal, extending his hand and touching the dark glass. Normally, this skill is most useful for examining skills, but it also works for objects. Strangely enough, the door is enchanted with several skills, namely silence, concealment, and deodorization. This is completely weird. For a moment, the Collector wondered if this could be an ancient relic. Ancient relics refers to the remnants of an ancient civilization that once existed in the world. Most of them are highly advanced and cannot be recreated in the present day. With that said, most people don't even know they exist because they're pretty unstable and dangerous. Now that he remembers it, the Collector decides to back away and withdraw his hand from touching the door. Well, he did try his luck and knocked, but still there's no response. This time he uses his presence detection skill, but he doesn't sense anyone. Maybe no one's inside? He stands quietly and starts to turn away. After he came all the way here, he feels a bit disappointed, thinking he should just return later. Just then, a girl appeared at the front door, asking if he needed something. What the? His presence detection is still in use. He turns to the voice while the girl explains that she just woke up from the knocking. Well, he's the one who was knocking on her door, right? The collector said that it is so, apologizing for waking her so suddenly, but in his mind he's a little puzzled because he was still using his skill, yet he didn't sense her presence at all. But wait, more than that, it's not just her presence. He also can't see her skills. It's like it's being blocked by something. Therapy continues that it's no problem, it's her fault for sleeping until noon. That's when the collector notices the necklace she's wearing. It has an unfamiliar design. Could it also be an ancient relic? That must explain why he couldn't sense her presence or skills. He makes a mental note to stay on his toes as he introduces himself as a skill collector. He heard from the town that there's someone there called Therapy who can communicate with monsters. At the mention of monsters, Therapy grabs both of his hands, excitedly asking if he's interested in monsters. The collector remains calm, a little speechless as she starts bombarding him with questions. Which type does he like? For her, she's really into beast type lately, but she likes the usual goblins too. Honestly speaking, he thinks chubby goblins are way cuter than skinny ones. Then she starts going off about giants and how they may be hard to raise if they get too big. The collector listens to her rambling, wondering what this girl is trying to achieve. Is she trying to make him lower his card? Wait, is she even human? The collector has all these worrying thoughts in his head, but all Therapy can ramble about is how cute monsters are once you start raising them. Huh? Does she know that raising monsters is dangerous? As if she read his thought, Therapy also knows that if she gives monsters a chance, she's pretty sure they'll bite her head off. Still, the collector is still hung up on the fact that she's raising monsters. If word spreads, then it wouldn't be strange for the kingdom to send a subjugation force. But strange this is that even though the villagers know she's raising monsters, they're pretty chill about it. Even the locals only refer to her as the weirdo. Finally, she realizes she's been over-talking and apologizes to the collector for being carried away. She bows her head in apology, telling him that he should just forget about everything she said. She remains bowed, leaving the collector staring at her when he suddenly feels something. All of a sudden, he bends back, a la Neo from the Matrix, just in time to avoid the beam that was fired from inside the house. God bless his intuition, barrier, and leap level for that. The collector is still in shock. Just what was that beam? He just got saved by the item's skills in his stock. Just then, Therapy notices that he's already awake, a hint of puzzlement in her voice. He gets up and tells her that she had just tried to kill him out of nowhere, and now she's acting so casual? Police. Upon hearing that, she gets defensive, saying she'd never do something like that. Oh, wait a minute, does he remember their conversation? The collector says he is making her confused. How can he still remember their conversation if that beam had hit him? To that, another voice joins them, saying the beam got deflected at the last second, then proceeds to ask the collector if his eyes are okay. They both turn in the direction of the voice and see a mechanical figure standing there. It's a humanoid golem. This is the first time the collector has seen something like this. Is it also an ancient relic? So is Therapy's house just full of ancient relics at this point? Meanwhile, Therapy is all over the golem, calling it Aliaria and saying that the collector is actually interested. While they talk, the collector had hoped to stay on guard, but somehow the tension keeps slipping. As for Therapy, she's way weirder than a weirdo, that one he knows for sure. The humanoid golem Aliaria tells Therapy that she should stay quiet because she's so useless. Being talked down like that hurt her feelings, prompting her to call Aliaria a meanie. Besides, Aliaria shouldn't forget that it was Therapy who found the golem and formed a master-servant contract with it. The latter reasons that it was only for rebooting purposes, but she still finds that such a terrible thing to say to the golem's master. That's when the collector decides to cut into their conversation. Aliaria turns to him, saying he may look like a merchant, but he managed to block the golem's memory erasure beam. Furthermore, Aliaria knows his skills are under concealment and he seems to know about ancient relics. The golem becomes defensive, telling Therapy to get behind her. Seeing how she's acting so apprehensive, the collector only smiles and apologizes. He should have introduced himself sooner. He states that he's a skill collector, just a humble merchant, but he is interested in Therapy. Aliaria beeps and deems he's telling the truth. If that's the case, she suggests they settle this with a proper trade. He will not share any of this information, and in exchange, Aliaria will tell him all about Therapy. Wait a minute, that deal sounds like it's only beneficial for the collector. Still, he is curious about Therapy, who can talk to monsters. In any case, he's just going to stay alert, though he doesn't sense any hostility behind the two. He ends up taking Aliaria's offer, and the two shake hands to seal the deal. She even stole his punchline. They head inside, where the interior looks more like a space station with caged monsters on the side. So it's true, huh? She really is keeping monsters. But more importantly, why is he seeing this? He's referring to the screen recordings of therapy on the monitor. Aliaria states that it's a playback of therapy's life. He wants to know more about her, right? Even therapy is embarrassed by what Aliaria is doing. Cut it out. But the golem thought that maybe it would be better if they switched to a live reading of therapy's original poem. Like, how is that any better? For therapy, that's much worse. The collector didn't come here to watch a drama unfold, so he tells them that what he really wants to know is how therapy can talk to monsters. At that, she simply says that she has loved monsters for a long time, and while pouring her affection on them, she started to understand what they're saying one day. Simple as that. She turns to the caged monster on her side, which also agreed, at least we think it did in its own way, to her. The collector has, if it's an acquired skill, but to his shock, Aliaria said it's all hallucinations. Eh? Come again? Even therapy is curious about it. What did the golem mean by hallucinations? The golem turns the videos of therapy off and tells her master that it's the truth. Ever since therapy was little, she has loved monsters so much that she immersed herself in monster research alone in a place like this. Then, one fateful day, she gained something special. Aliaria saw her master talking to a monster, asking if it was hungry, and then turned her head sideways to listen to it. On that day, Aliaria said that therapy's hallucination skill now has a skill slot called Interact. The collector frowns because does this mean that her ability to talk to monsters just stemmed from being herself? Therapy is in shock. Why didn't Aliaria tell her that before? Why keep it from her? The latter reasons that therapy wouldn't have believed her anyway. In any case, she's glad that the collector came, so it helped the golem to reveal the truth to therapy. Furthermore, Aliaria also shared how they had to reject anyone who came to see therapy because she was raising a monster. That one was pretty problematic. The collector doesn't like this because does this mean they see him as a convenient third party? Before that, Aliaria takes therapy's necklace off, since the item hides her skills. The latter, on the other hand, only wore it because she thought it looked nice on her. Aliaria asks the collector if he can use appraisal on her. Don't bother asking, the golem just knows our protagonist has that skill. The way Aliaria said it seemed like a demand more than a request, but anyway, he decided to do so to check therapy's skills. Not surprisingly is the fact that what Aliaria said is true. The hallucination skill is really there. Is he being for real? The collector can only sigh because in the end, talking with monsters is still just an impossible fantasy for him. Therapy is throwing a fit, still in denial that it's all because of her hallucination skill. If that's the case, the collector offers to buy this skill of hers if she doesn't want it. Aliaria points out that for a girl like Therapy who talks with monsters, hallucination is an essential skill for her. Just like that, the day ended and the collector turned to go, but before he did, Aliaria just had one more question. What made him, a merchant, want to speak with monsters? The collector says it's to expand his business and meet someone again, clutching his locket as he said so. The gesture didn't go unnoticed under Aliaria's watchful eyes, and she scans the item. A portrait locket, huh? And a sentimental one at that. This low-key pissed the collector, but he respectfully asked the golem to stop scanning his belongings without permission. That's when Aliaria told him that she had just seen the woman in the locket just the other day. The collector quickly turned. She saw her. The golem says she did, in a small village south of here when she and Therapy went on a monster field survey. Aliaria remembers her vividly because she stood out, giving free appraisals to both villagers and passing travelers. If she remembers correctly, the people called that woman the Saint. It's a new place where the coachman just dropped off the collector. The older man bids him to take care, something our hero thanks him for. He starts walking toward the town where Aliaria said she saw his sister. He keeps running with his heart racing, and for the life of him, he couldn't calm his mind. The collector clutches his locket, thinking about the saint. Soon a town comes into view. Finally, he found his sister. Since that day when his sister massacred their whole town, many years have passed. And after so many years of traveling, this is the first information he has ever had about his sister. So even if the situation is a trap, he has no choice but to go here. He eyes the town below him and proceeds to head down to talk to the villagers. He chanced upon an elderly couple asking about the saint. The elder man told him that the saint is not in this village. She's beyond that forest. However, he also warned the collector from going there just because he's curious. Obviously, this piqued our hero's interest. Why not? He asked. Well, the saint is famous for giving free appraisals to both villagers and travelers. But lately, there have been concerns about several people disappearing from that village. Several people have disappeared from that village. Missing people, huh? The collector thought. He knows his sister's modus. She disguises her appraisal to check on people's gifts, but in reality, what she's really using is her unique gift, plunder. Once she uses that, she kills her target once she deems they're useless. Despite the warning, the collector heads in the direction of the saint. The old man calls out to him hastily. He can't be serious, can he? Is he really going there? There are lots of monsters in that forest. It's dangerous. The collector only thanked the elder man for his concern, but he had to go. He needed to see the saint. Our hero sprints straight to the forest, all while thinking about his sister. Why did his sister do it? She already has everything, so why does she want to steal other people's gifts? A monster suddenly appears, interrupting his train of thought. The collector spent no time taking it down using one of his stock trade skills. Wind Magic, level 30. With just a whisk of his hands, he ripped the monster in two. After checking if the creature is really dead, the collector resumes running because he can't waste his time here. His sister's skill, Plunder, is a rare skill. Only one person can possess it at one time, and those who held it before her were all infamous villains in history. There's the Plunder King, who rose from the slums to the throne, seizing everything for himself. There's also the Dark Hero, who was once a hero of hope. However, he stole his comrade's skills and plotted the world's end. The collector encountered more monsters the deeper he delved into the forest, but he easily took them down, thanks to his trade skills. In his mind, he thought that if only the previous plunder user had lived longer, then his sister would never have had it. If she had never had it, then maybe they would still be living together peacefully. But no, that's impossible. The collector quickly dismissed that thought because it was meaningless. The only thing he wants is an answer as to why his sister has to become the next plunder user. Before long, he sees the village where the saint is. The collector stares at it for a hot minute before rubbing his eyes. Is it just because it's located in the countryside? Or are his eyes deceiving him? This looks just like his old hometown. But it can't be. Anyway, he has more important things to do. He needs to find the saint. The quickest way to know where the saint is to ask the locals, but if it's some kind of trap, revealing his true identity would be dangerous. He flicks a coin and decides his course of action. He'll just be a traveling merchant and not the discarded skill collector. At the village entrance, 2 guards are on standby. When they see the collector approaching, they lighten up. It's not every day a traveling merchant drops by the village, and he came a long way too. The collector smiles and hopes he can do some business opportunities in the area. Plus, he also heard he can receive a free appraisal here. At the mention of that, the guard lit up. Oh ho! So he's here to see the saint. He's surprised to see how much the saint is revered in this village. The guard sang praises about the saint, saying how she's too good for a village like theirs, and that's not all. On top of giving free appraisals to everyone, she's also really beautiful. Hearing that just made the collector more eager to meet her. So where can he find this saint of theirs? They direct him to head to the edge of the village where she lives on a hill. Additionally, they also warn him not to think of any strange ideas since the saint can use all sorts of powerful magic. The collector only smiles and tells them he'll keep that in mind. But before he went to the house at the edge of the hill, the collector conducted business as usual. But this time, he's not trading skills, he's selling accessories and other knickknacks. While doing this, he thought that the reason why the guards told him about the saint so casually was that they believed outsiders like him could never harm her, trusting in her strength. Like the guards, all the villagers have nothing but nice things to say about the saint. Not only is she wonderful, but she's also a kind woman who gives free weekly appraisals. One of the elderly even said that she also advises on how to develop one's abilities. Well, the collector is pleased to hear that, but there's one other thing he heard about the place. Apparently there's been a rumor going around that there are missing persons in their area. Surprisingly, the villagers are not too bothered by that. Sure, there are missing persons, but they believe they'll be back soon and that the saint will find them. Everything would be fine as long as the saint is with them. The collector can only lower his gaze, seeing how much these people put their faith in his sister. Like the guards, the villagers direct him to that one house on the hill. They even suggested he should get appraised too. The collector thanks them and continues on his way. That's when he remembers that their house was also located on a hill. Even when their parents abandoned him, it was his sister who stayed with him in that house. He trudges along the path, remembering how he'd get into fights with the village brats back then and come home where his sister was waiting for him. The collector stops in his tracks at the scene before him. This has to be a joke, right? The saint's house looks exactly like his house. He goes to the front door and knocks, introducing himself as a traveling merchant who has heard of and wishes to meet the saint. After a beat, he's only met with silence, so he pushes the door. It swings open and the collector is greeted by the memories he shared with his sister in the whole house. Even the painting she hung up in his house is also there. But the collector walks past it and heads up. Along the way, he calls out to his sister, asking if she's there. As soon as he reaches the landing, he sees a girl standing with her back turned to him, while he calls out to her. The girl turns and welcomes the collector. She's his dear brother, right? The collector stood staring at the person before him while the girl smiled. Sure, she looks just like his sister, but her eyes are different. No, she is not his sister. He asks her then if she is the rumored saint whom people have been talking about. Upon hearing that, the girl blushes because it looks like she's doing a great job imitating her excellency. This just confirms what the collector already knew. This girl knows his sister. To be frank, knowing his sister is not the right word because what she feels toward the latter is on another level. So does that mean this girl worships his sister? At that, she perks up and starts rambling about all his sister's qualities, like how wise, noble, and beautiful she is. Plus, she's also wielding the power of all things. Simply put, this girl adores his sister. She even copied her appearance, asking the collector if they looked similar. Well, he couldn't be bothered about all that, but the collector admits that from afar he could mistake her for his sister. The girl is flattered to hear that while he looks around, asking if his sister is here. The girl sits and replies that there's no way Her Excellency would be in a village like this, and no, not even in this country. She revealed how Her Excellency has seized a certain country on the continent and is plotting to conquer the world. She what? The girl continues about how his sister is busy pursuing these grand ambitions, which left him dumbfounded. While he was out there training his skills as the skill collector, his sister was busy with world domination, one step at a time. But world conquest, really? He couldn't wrap his head around why his sister would do that. Seeing his reaction, the girl only looked at him with a mix of pity and disappointment. She tells him how Her Excellency used her to keep tabs, and she had always wondered what sort of person his sister might be. How is it that he doesn't even have an ounce of understanding of his older sister's intention when he's her real younger brother? If anything, this just confirms that he's nothing special. Upon hearing that, the collector is reminded again of how he always thought he was closer to her than anyone in the world. But it turns out he doesn't understand her at all. Even so, this is exactly why he's looking for clues about his sister. He refuses to give up on her as her family. The girl didn't like that last bit and frowned. She stands from her seat, calling him out for his arrogance. Does he really think he's the one special to her? She raises her hand and electricity crackles in her palm. How unpleasant, she says as she looks at him with disdain. Suddenly, lightning strikes the house on a hill. The collector barely managed to evade it thanks to the skills he has in store. But what was that? Is that lightning magic? From what he remembers, the villagers said that the saint can wield a variety of magic too. The girl relays how his sister told her back then to do as she pleased, and since she was granted the permission to do whatever, how about she rids the world of the collector? She spreads her arms out wide, and from there, water appears. He can't believe it. She can use water magic too? She attacked the collector with this new element, but he blocked it using his level 30 barrier. He may be in a pickle right now, but he wants to know more about his sister from the saint. The girl continues to attack him with her water magic, but even she's annoyed at his barrier skill. Can't he just die already? Okay, he may not be able to get information out of her if she's bent on killing him. Since the collector still isn't caving, she tried something different. The saint increased the water pressure, causing the current to overflow through the gaps in his barrier. Soon, this overflowing water envelops and starts to suffocate him. Crap, he can't breathe. If she's imitating his sister, did she also plunder this skill from the villagers? Does the saint also have the plunder skill? But no, it can't be. The plunder skill is a rare one, so only one person per era can hold the same skill. As long as his sister is alive, there's no way someone else can also share the same skill. The collector tries to use his appraisal on her, but it's no use. He can't figure her out. Even if he uses appraisal, she's wearing the same necklace Therapy has, the ancient relic, which blocks her skills from being seen. He needs to do something about that necklace. Using wind magic, the collector dispelled the water that enveloped him. The saint is impressed at how he repelled her water magic with wind. Not bad. Okay, from what he's seeing, the saint uses long-range spells, so if he wants to get rid of that necklace, he needs to close the distance between them. He needs to create an opening, but the question is how? The saint speaks, getting giddy because what if she presents his corpse to Her Excellency? For sure, the latter would praise her. Oh, this just gave our hero an idea. It's a gamble, but it's worth a try. This time the saint used wood magic and conjured vines. Is the collector all tired now? It's time to finish him off. She attacks him with the vines, wrapping them around him, but he cuts them off as he moves closer and throws something in the air. Is he trying a ranged attack? Whatever, she'll just turn it into ash. That's when she spotted the item he threw. It was his locket with their picture exposed. The image of his sister caught the saint off guard, and the collector used this chance to activate his blink skill. Since the saint still has her eyes on the locket, he snatched her necklace off his neck. Finally, he can see her skills. Her main skill is level 20 mimicry, and she's currently using it to copy the gift Plunder. Apart from that, she also has lighting, water, earth, fire, and wind, as well as barrier, appraisal, charm, and acting skills under her mimicry skill. This just confirmed what the collector knew all along. She was just copying Plunder. But the saint's concern is directed toward the necklace he snatched. Give it back, she cries, since Her Excellency gave it to her. But our hero managed to pin her down using his level 30 super strength skill. In her blind panic, she rushed in without thinking and let her guard down. But from what he remembers, mimicry can only copy one skill at a time. He picks up his locket from the floor while the saint commends him for knowing such a fact. As expected of the famous skill collector. Well, since they're already here, she might as well give her plunder skill to him. But to her surprise, it didn't work. That's because he activated his mental resistance skill. He tells her that he researched the skill plunder a lot ever since he parted ways with his sister. Resistance-type skills might block it, though he doesn't know if that will work on his sister, who has the original plunder skill. In the end, what the saint has is nothing but an imitation. That obviously struck a nerve because she snaps and tells him to shut up. Even she's well aware of that. As a child, the saint's skill, mimicry, can only ever be a copy of someone else's skill. Since most of the kids her age want to be mages, she wants to be one too. See? She can even use lightning magic like everyone else. She went ahead and told the other kids that she copied the skill using mimicry because she thought it looked the coolest. But the kids didn't like that. They started resenting her for copying them, branding her as a dirty copycat. But this is all she knows about how to make them accept her. Unfortunately, they got fed up with her copying to the point that she's ostracized by the kids, calling her scum and garbage. The poor saint can only hold her hand up in defense as the kids throw rocks at her. It's not like she wanted to be born with this kind of skill. Why can't people choose their skills? Why was she born with a skill like this? Before she can start resenting her skill, a voice tells her not to do that. It was the collector's sister. She tells the girl that her skill isn't worthless and encourages her to copy her plunder skill with her mimicry. She knows because she's on the girl's side. What's more, the collector's sister even promised that if she does that, then things like this will never happen again. Back to the present. The collector tells the saint that he has a huge collection of skills, asking if she could tell him where his sister is. The saint narrows her eyes at him as he continues that she doesn't stand a chance against him. The girl continues to look at the locket and replies that it's not for him to decide. As the saying goes, you won't know until you try until the end. Just then, the collector's intuition level warns him, followed by a huge explosion. Debris flew everywhere, including the collector. The blast instantly killed the saint, leaving her a bloody mess. Meanwhile, our hero groans from the ground, but again he's saved by his stock skills, sturdy and barrier. He starts to get up shakily and looks at the damage before him. This can't be... The collector walks over to check on her, but she's all banged up and definitely dead. He can't believe she used a high-level spell and blew herself up. That's just plain fanaticism, then stares at the ancient relic necklace. Our hero can't believe his sister would keep a person like that on her side. But there's something more pressing than now. Is her sister really planning to conquer the world? The collector leaves the scene of the crime as the villagers start flooding the saint's house. Unknown to them, there's a hooded figure watching this all unfold from a safe distance. The villagers see the saint, but it's no use, she's already dead. The figure herself also knows this from where she stands, though she feels bad because the saint was pretty strong too. Even so, that was the saint's wish, to die for their big sister. With that, she walks away from the site. The collector calls out to his older sister, but with her back turned to him, he couldn't see her face. "What's wrong, my dear brother?" she asks. Suddenly, he's a kid again, asking this time if his sister is pushing for world domination. "It's not true that you're taking over a country, right? Please tell me it's a lie," he almost begs her. But to that, the only thing his sister tells him is how he has always been such a fool. With that, the collector wakes up and sits up in bed. How long has it been since he last dreamed? The night after his encounter with the saint, his sister's worshipper, traces of magic that suggested her death was an accident can be felt. As for the collector himself, he was taken in by the village for treatment. The doctors are surprised to discover how his wounds have already healed. They deduce he must have some kind of recovery-type skill or something, because his healing rate was way too fast. That's true, actually. The collector has both recovery and vitality among his skill set, but he doesn't bother explaining this to the doctor. If anything, he grabs his belongings, puts on his shirt, and thanks them for helping him. Outside, he sees some of the villagers are mourning the loss of the saint. Now that Sansama is gone, what's going to happen to our village? He hears their concerns out loud. She may have been a fraud, but the people's faith in the saint still runs deep. There's no doubt she's a cunning person who manipulated others, yet everyone ended up loving that mask. She crafted that mask so beautifully, and it was exactly as if she were his real sister. Speaking of her sister, he knows she's still wearing her mask until now, prompting him to wonder what the latter is missing. Well, she needs others to love her obsessively to take and take until she's satisfied. There's just something inside her that can never be filled. For now, the collector's course of action is to find out which country his sister took over. The collector resumes his traveling and finds himself in the next town soon enough. In the middle of the street, the voice of a man can be heard, selling skewers and calling out to potential customers. The man turns to the collector, calling him a big-shot merchant, pulling his marketing skills to get the latter to buy from him. The collector smiles, saying he'll take one skewer, but actually he knows this seller. It's Michael. Maykill, the informant, greets the collector in turn, happy to see the latter. The collector is curious about when Maykill switched jobs and became a street vendor. Maykill answers that he didn't, clarifying that it was just his cover. People loosen up when they're eating something tasty, which makes it easier to get info, he adds. Even our MC thinks that's true, but it's also true that Maykill's skewer tastes great. Small talk aside, the collector says there's something he'd like Maykill to investigate. It piques the latter's attention, but wait, it's not the same thing again, huh? Unfortunately, the collector replies that it's still about his sister. With that, Maykill leaves his spot at the market and leaves a sign saying he's preparing. The two men head to Maykill's tent where he urges our MC to have a seat. It's a surprise that the collector even brought something for him. But as for the matter of the former's request, it makes Maykill a bit useless since 8 years had already passed since the collector first approached him about this matter. What's time anyway for an almost eternal being like the collector? If anything, he's just grateful that he told Maykill about his sister. Maykill may look like a pretty chill dude, but he's actually a pretty skilled informant. The collector doesn't want to drag anyone else into matters concerning his sister, but there's only so much he can do. He can't do it all alone. This is why he partnered with Maykill and has been working with him ever since. Maykill clarifies the collector's request first. So, what you're after is information on the current world situation, right? Our MC confirms that it is correct, asking his friend if there have been any nations showing suspicious movement lately. Maykill grabs his map and spreads it on the table, explaining that there are several nations on this continent and all of them play a part in maintaining the balance. There's Buyukwag, Shikyu, Richyu, and Kenukeshiv, where they are currently. So far, it's a pretty peaceful and stable country. Of course, there are others too, like one famous for theater and others, while the other is full of merchants. There's Dakashu, the Great Mountain Range, an unexplored area, and Batare. According to Maykill, the unexplored is mostly undeveloped and crawling with monsters. From what the collector heard, his sister supposedly took over a whole country. For something of that scale, it would be major news, like an entire government changing hands. He figured that even here in Kenukeshiv, word would have surely spread if something like that happened. Maykill says he hasn't heard anything about that, which means there's a country that looks the same on the surface but is actually hollow inside. He checks the map again, pointing out the unstable countries, especially the two bordering the uncharted lands. Both military nations and the coastal maritime state ruled by pirates appear to be somewhat questionable as well. The collector asks Maykill if he could investigate for him, because he wants to know which country his sister has taken over. The latter stands asking, is this an official request to broker Maykill from the collector, right? Our MC affirms that it is, so Maykill replies that he'll take the usual payment. Leave it to my skills, he confidently adds. Maykill has a couple of interesting skills like ultrasound, heightened hearing, persuasion, and eavesdropping, but out of all of these, he can also communicate with animals, in this instance, the rats, whispering something to them before they start scurrying about. The collector remains impressed by his friend's skill, in awe at how Maykill can communicate with animals like that. Well, the scale of Maykill's intel gathering is on another level, plus it also helps that rats don't have borders. He extends his hand asking the collector for the investigation fee. Our MC is more than happy to do so. He retrieves Maykill's negative skill, Stench, and sells him Vitality in return. Maykill is happy with this because he spends so much time with rats and bats. Their Stench skill keeps coming back and sticking to him. The collector sells skills to Maykill at a special price as payment for his information. It reminds him of when they first met 8 years ago, and back then, Maykill's Stench skill was pretty high level. The latter nods, beaming as he tells our MC why he's so grateful for the collector. Thanks to the Vitality he sells, the informant no longer catches any infections. Something about Maykill's happy disposition smells fishy to the collector. You're in a good mood today. Is something bothering you? He asks Maykill. When someone thanks the collector, he can't help but get suspicious, and Maykill's response isn't too convincing either. Hey, how long are you going to stay in there, idiot? They hear a voice shouting from outside Maykill's tent. In the end, the latter admits that he has a troublesome guest coming in today, and with that said, he rushes outside to meet this guest since he's got caught up with all that prep work. Once outside, Maykill flashes a bright smile to the person scowling before them, a little girl dressed in noble clothes. The collector makes a quick assessment of the girl, noting how she's pretty well dressed. However, what he finds even more peculiar is that the market suddenly became so quiet. He looks around and notices how the villagers look more depressed than ever. He can hear one mutter about how he has never had a girlfriend, or the girl who's convincing herself that she can still wear trendy clothes since she's still young, and there's the guy who's pep-talking himself saying he's not a poor thing. What the? The collector is weirded out because why does everyone look like they're crushed mentally? Could it be because of that girl? Even Maykill looks a bit troubled. The informant is in businessman mode, trying to appease the little girl by offering her a skewer first, but the latter is a pretty feisty and sharp-tongued lass. She explicitly tells Maykill that she's here for information and not his stupid skewers. Do you know what's worse? She called Maykill an old man. Of course, Maykill tries to defend himself, but the girl doubles down, saying he looks old enough for her. Besides, she's got some dang skill issues to deal with too. Oh, that caught the collector's attention, while the girl demands that Maykill give him anything. Whether it's skill-affecting drugs, skill specialist doctors, or just about anything. Maykill turns to the collector, then quickly turns his attention back to the girl. Aha moment, Maykill says he knows some things, but as per his terms, information doesn't come free. Old man! The girl whips her head around and calls the older man behind her, presumed to be her butler. The latter opens the briefcase he is holding, showing gold coins and money inside. Maykill brightens up while the girl continues that it's her skill they're talking about, so she'll pay whatever huge sum it takes to fix it. Maykill takes his pay first before introducing the collector into their conversation, saying the latter is a top-notch skill specialist merchant. The girl finally looks at the collector, while Maykill reminds his friend not to forget to pay him his broker's fee later. The collector greets the girl and introduces himself, saying he buys unwanted skills. From what he heard so far, she's having trouble with a skill. The girl frowns. A creeper who's been eavesdropping from the back? What are you, a skill collector? She asks. The collector patiently answers that he can buy skills with his one and only special skill. The way he smiles gives the girl the creeps, so she calls him out and tells him outright that it's disgusting. Thankfully, the collector is patient as he explains that this is his business smile, apologizing if the girl is offended by it. So that's why you smiled. What a creep! A pervy appraisal peeper. Suddenly her tone drops, confirming if he can see her skill given how he's a trader of skills, right? The collector uses his appraisal skill now, but clarifies to the girl that he doesn't laugh at other people's skills. Any discarded skill, no matter how much of a downside, is a commodity to me, he explains. I'll happily take and buy it. He finally sees the girl's skill set, and she's got a pretty troublesome skill out of the 3 she has. A level 6 poison tongue. He asks her if the skill that's bringing her trouble is poison tongue. In truth, he doesn't need her to say it out loud. He already knows. After all, it's a pretty popular negative skill that's common among thugs. In her defense, the girl says it's not like she enjoys insulting people or anything. The collector pities her, knowing how poison tongue is usually learned by people with twisted personalities. However, sometimes they gain the said skill as a defense against stress, which makes him wonder what her story is. The tense moment is broken when an elderly woman approaches Maykill's stall, saying she wants to buy his skewers. At that, the collector suggests they move somewhere else to talk, while his informant friend waves him good luck with the job. This time, the butler takes the lead, and the 3 of them ride in the carriage. After some time, they stopped at a secluded spot where both the collector and the butler got down to talk. The older man apologizes on behalf of the young lady as well as for the extra carriage ride, but our MC is just glad that they can discuss business with ease. The older man begins by saying the young lady is his mistress's child. The young miss spent her life constantly watching her parents argue. As a result, the young miss is on the receiving end of many hurtful words, constantly being belittled and harassed in front of others. The butler couldn't do anything but watch helplessly as the young miss got mistreated until finally, she reached her stress limit. Once when her stepmother called her a disgusting child, she finally snapped, "Shut up, you nosy hag! You're the disgusting one, not me!" The young miss fires back. She goes on about how her stepmother's pathetic pride can only be kept by looking down on kids in her fancy dress. The older lady was too stunned to speak, but the young miss continued lashing out. "You've got a tinier heart than a teacup. No wonder you were never loved like the legitimate wife." She even taunts her stepmother to hit her, but the girl vows to keep cursing her stepmother until her throat gets destroyed. The butler firmly believes that the young lady surely acquired poison tongue at that moment. Speaking of the young miss, she draws back the carriage curtains to look at the 2. "Don't go talking on your own," she tells them. The older man apologizes while the collector has some things he's weighing on his mind. Because if the poison tongue was the young miss's way of surviving in that household, then it would be detrimental for her if he took it away. The collector and the butler resume their seats in the carriage. As for the collector, he asks the young lady what she wants for herself. The girl hesitates and looks down. Her butler assures her that she'll be fine if she takes a deep breath and speaks calmly. The young miss did as he suggested and finally spoke decently for the first time. Admittedly, she doesn't want to go back, but she also doesn't want to hurt good people anymore if she stays like this. The collector feels touched by her behavior, so here's what he's going to do. He'll just leave her with a level 1 poison tongue. At least, with that level it shouldn't cause much trouble. She feels hopeful for the first time in a long while, asking if he can really do that. Is that really possible? The collector answers, "Of course," handing her a bag of coins signifying that the transaction is complete. Now her poison tongue is only at level 1. He suggests she get an appraisal at the church later, and if the level rises again, he promises to come back and buy it. She beams and thanks the merchant and almost even calls him a creep again. Oops, force of habit. The butler, on the other hand, couldn't believe that they'd receive that much money from selling the young Mrs. Useless skill. The collector says it's because the poison tongue is quite a popular, in-demand skill. The girl is surprised to discover this about her skill, while her butler wonders how useful that kind of skill is. Back at the market, Maykill finally found the collector. Our hero leaves the task of figuring out the issue with his sister to the informant, and of course Maykill is more than happy to do so. But sister issues aside, Maykill reminds the collector of the girl's brokerage fee. Our MC fishes an envelope out of his belongings and hands it to Maykill. As much as it can't be helped, he did get to collect a popular skill at level 5 this time around. Popular skill, huh? I always wonder, these skills were unwanted in the first place, right? And yet, they still find buyers? The world really is a strange place, Maykill says. To that, the collector says any skill can have its uses, and with that, he samples Poison Tongue level 5 on Maykill. There's no definite wording on what the collector said to the informant, but it was enough for the latter's blood to run cold with fear. See? Poison Tongue can be useful to deliver verbal assault straight out of a nightmare. Maykill was so scared by what the collector said that he practically begged for mercy. But wait a minute, the skill's not that bad, or is it? In this world there are things called skills that exist. The MC of our story, the skill collector, is one who buys and sells unwanted skills. So the story so far, the collector leaves the intel gathering to his friend Maykill, while the former continues with his business while waiting for Maykill's report. But just to be clear, even the collector himself has several useful skills, like eavesdropping, that enable him to gather information quickly. The only downside is that without practical experience, he's aware that he may not be able to use them well despite their high levels. Speaking of trying, he tries to give it a go and test it on a nearby pair, but no sooner had he done it than he realized that he looked just like a creep. "Well now, what are you doing here?" says an unfamiliar voice from behind him. The collector whips his head around quickly, apologizing for his suspicious look when he realizes he's face to face with a priest. "The Lord sees even the tiniest deeds, you know," the latter says with a gentle smile on his face. Our MC straightens up, saying he'll keep what the older man said in mind. On the contrary, the priest feels apologetic for stopping the collector on whatever business he was doing. They were soon joined by two children, laughing at the collector's face for getting a scolding from the priest. Only then did our MC realize that he was talking to a priest and that he was at a church. Looking at the holy place, it reminds him of how he didn't have the best memories when it comes to the church. After all, it was the very place that branded him as worthless when he was younger. The priest sees him lingering and, like any good priest, tells our MC that the church is open and that it's a place of rest for all. The collector gives his usual business smile, thinking that he'd rather not enter the premises at all. As he was about to turn away, the priest then asked if our MC would like to have his skills appraised at the church. "No thank you, I have work to do collecting skills, so I'll be on my way," was our hero's response. "Collecting skills?" The collector heard the older man say from behind him. "Oh crap. From the perspective of one who serves God, the priest must think trading skills is a pretty blasphemous act. He should leave before the priest gives him a scolding, so he bowed his head and was about to say goodbye when the older man stopped him right then and there with such urgency that they were both stunned. "Sorry, but if this is a sermon, then maybe another time," was what our hero said, but the priest quickly clarified that it's not like that. "This isn't about my role as a priest, but a personal matter of mine," he explained. The priest then whispered to the collector's ear that he'd like to discuss something with him later. Cut to later that evening. The collector finds himself in the priest's living quarters behind the church. He didn't even know there was a place like this at church. The two sit down face to face, with the priest apologizing for troubling the collector at such a late hour. But it's fine for the collector. He's used to these things. If anything, he's interested in what kind of business a man of God wants with him. Suddenly, the older man starts getting flustered and can't put two and two together before abruptly rising from his seat. "Do you also collect skills that are unworthy before God?" making the collector stare at him questioningly. Rather than submit the older man to embarrassment, the collector offered to use appraisal so he could get to the root of the problem, which the priest believes is best to do at this point. That's when he found it. The cause of the priest's stress was his level 20 libido skill. Before our hero could say anything, the older man confirmed that it was so his libido skill. Actually, having the said skill is fairly common, but in the case of the priest, this level is too extreme. Level 5 is already considered high, so level 20 is practically insane. Normally this would lead straight to sexual criminality, but seeing how the priest's libido skill is level 20, the older man must have managed to hold himself together. It's truly disgraceful for a priest to be indecent. He laments over his skill, admitting how he couldn't confide this to anyone. The collector smiles and assures him that he receives requests like this often. Plus, if the older man really wishes to conceal this, then he'd better start by talking more quietly, no? But no. The older man continues narrating his woes about how he feels like he might pounce on the believers if he even lets his guard down for 1 second. Heck, even the legs on the coffee table seem obscene to him. Still, the collector understands where the older man is coming from, but it's still unexpected from such a seemingly pure priest. Anyway, back to business. The collector explains that libido is popular with everyone of all ages, but since it's at a pretty high level, buying it would exceed his current budget. With that said, he asks the priest if he could return another day to do the transaction. Of course, the priest is more than happy to hear that. "I'm relieved since she came here, my libido level has only kept rising," the older man says. "Now I won't have to suffer anymore." Wait, here? Who is he referring to? It didn't take long for the collector to know who the priest was talking about, because not a second later they heard a girl's voice, asking if the priest was okay since she heard loud voices. A petite and attractive nun appears, panting as she tells them how she heard someone talking from downstairs. "Sister, I'm sorry, I was speaking with this merchant about ordering church equipment," the priest says of his white lie. The nun easily believes what he said and turns to go, apologizing for interrupting. As fate would have it, she's also clumsy. On her way out, she tripped and accidentally flashed both the priest and the collector her undies. Still, the priest showed incredible restraint and asked if she was okay as he was helping her up. The nun clings to the priest's chest, making the poor man struggle even more. And as the collector bears witness to all this, it made him wonder if she was doing this on purpose, so he also checked her skills using appraisal. Well, it turns out Sister's skill is a bad match against the poor priest, for she has charm, allure, arousal, and insensitivity. The collector couldn't believe it. Just what the hell was this combination skill? Even a succubus wouldn't go this far. Alas, finally Sister has left, and as soon as she shut the door, the collector turned to the priest. "Don't tell me it's her," he asks, and yes, that is correct. "The reason your libido became intense is because of her skills," our hero explains, to the shock of the priest. The older man was pretty surprised the first time Sister came to church, and what's even worse is that she doesn't understand her own skills. According to the priest, Sister's parents must have hidden it. But the thing is, even the church's appraisal treads carefully around such negative skills. Before she came here, she was always troubled by perverts, and coming into the church has reduced that incident significantly. However, the thing the priest has the most grievance with her for is her insensitivity, unaware that she excites others. There was another knock on the door, followed by the very topic of their conversation appearing. She informs the priest that she has been training every day to become a proper sister, which is why she would like to test whether she has finally learned appraisal. Well, isn't that wonderful news? But what she says got the poor old priest worried again. "I'll try it on my own skills first, and if I've learned it properly, I'll use it on the believers too," is what she said. The older man can't help but raise his voice at how she intends to use appraisal on herself first, but since the nun has insensitivity, she couldn't care less about what the priest had to say. All this time, Sister believes that her only skill is insensitivity and thinks that the appraisal skill has just been added recently, leaving her all giddy and excited. With that, she bids them both good night while the priest panics because if she were to learn about her own skills, this could turn out for the worst. A week later, the collector returns to the parish, finally carrying enough funds to buy the priest's libido skill. The moment he steps inside the church to call out to the priest, the latter apologizes profusely, saying this isn't the right time to conduct business. "Sister, she's gone," the older man says with worry. The collector joins in and helps find the missing nun, calling out to her as the priest relays that she has been missing since this morning. She left a single letter on her bed saying she was a disgrace as a believer and that she must be punished. From the looks of it, Sister must have learned about her own skills. Our hero may not share the same faith as she does, but Sister must have been a devout believer. He decides to cast aside buying skills and prioritize helping find her. The collector looks around and stops, wondering if he could use his skills to help track her down. With that, he activates both presence detection and smell at the same time. His senses make him turn in the direction of a thick forest ahead. It's pretty gloomy enough during the day that no one would dare to enter it. But could it be? There's no time to waste. The collector quickly calls the priest, telling him they should hurry or else something bad could happen. Meanwhile, inside the forest, Sister was indeed there, and she was in the middle of ending it all. "Oh God, forgive me," she mutters as she prepares the rope. Fortunately, the priest and the collector arrive just in time as she was about to do it. The older man grabs her while the collector cuts the rope using his wind magic. Sister falls on top of the priest, begging him to release her. "I had no idea that I possessed such filthy skills," she cries. "This isn't fitting before God. I can't go on living." She attempts to run away, her robe getting caught in a branch and tearing it as she does so, while the priest only looks on. "If you are unworthy, then so am I," the older man replies. He also points out how she looks pretty indecent with her clothes torn like that. "Oh no, this is bad." The collector is shocked at the priest's blatant comment before the older man asks Sister to use appraisal on him. She finally sees his skills, while he continues that Sister is not the only one with tainted skills. However, due to the nun's current appraisal level, she still can't see the levels of one skill. So the priest finally admits that his libido skill is level 20 and proceeds to push Sister to the ground. "Does it frighten you to be touched by a person like me?" he asks as he hovers over her. The collector hurries over to them. He needs to stop the priest because his libido is at a dangerously high level. However, at the last minute, the older man's reason skill kicked in. He gets up and apologizes to the nun for scaring her. Still, his point stands, he's also a tainted human. He finally admits how he tried to suppress his desire with the reason skill and even considered relying on the collector himself to get rid of his libido entirely. However, Father has decided he will no longer rely on the collector. Skills are blessings from God. Even tainted skills must be accepted and overcome. That's the trial God has bestowed upon us, the priest proclaimed. With that, he extends his hand to the nun, asking if she would like to overcome it together with him. She takes his hand, and for a moment the older man almost caves right then and there. "Father, I was wrong. As fellow servants of God, I will strive as you say," was her answer. Well, that's all nice and good for them, while the collector bore witness to all of this. In his eyes, it feels like a moment from a sacred mural, as long as you ignore the fact that the priest's back is soaked in sweat. Since they decided to keep their skills, this only means that the collector has failed to collect the libido skill from the priest. It's a failed negotiation. With a sigh, it makes him wonder just what the hell he even went through all of this for. As he was about to go and take his leave, the priest called out to him and thanked our hero for all his efforts. "Please come visit the church again. If there's anything I can help with, don't hesitate." Well, that's a nice offer, but our hero's not too sure about that. Still, at least in the end, the collector feels like he became a bit closer to the church compared to before. The collector is back in town and is currently back at the restaurant with Sumire-san and another girl. "I heard about you from Sumire-chan," the girl initiates to the collector. "She said you're knowledgeable about skills, so I wanted to consult you." Our MC introduces himself as a collector of unwanted skills, so he should be able to help out with that topic. The girl begins by sharing how she recently inherited a certain piece of land from a relative, and that there's something strange about the said land. When you approach it, you start feeling unwell. There are also rumors from neighbors that a homeless person has taken up residence there. According to the rumors, it seems the person who started to live there possesses a strange skill. This is where the collector comes in, because the girl would like him to check it out and do something about it. Our hero ponders over the issue, relaying how he's only a mere merchant, so there's no guarantee that he can solve this issue. Sumire-san chimes in, apologizing for bringing such a troublesome request to our MC. However, her friend is really troubled, and the only person Sumire-san can rely on is the collector himself. After much thought, the collector thinks that if he could collect a rare skill, then that would be a bonus. Plus, he can't exactly turn down a request from Sumire-san's friend. In the end, he accepted the request and asked to be shown where the place is. The girl is happy to hear that, but gives him a heads up that the place is pretty far from the city. Thus began their long journey to reach her newly acquired piece of land. In due time, they reached the place, and even Sumire-san could feel that the place felt a bit heavy. The collector is more curious about the ruin situated in the middle of the land. Sumire-san's friend tells him that the ruin was already there when she acquired the land, and in all honesty, she wants to demolish the ruined tower. From what she heard, people start getting sick whenever they come near the ruined tower. Sumire-san then asks if someone is really living there, and the collector believes that it is most likely the case. He uses his presence detection to confirm their suspicions, and someone was indeed living inside the ruined tower. Both girls were surprised to hear this since they couldn't see anything at all. The collector turns and asks what kind of problems people have when they get close. The girl says she, along with the neighbors, started seeing soldiers or huge birds they've never seen before that shouldn't exist. If they're seeing non-existent things, then it might be due to the hallucination skill, says our hero. He explains that it's a common skill that usually causes the user to see illusions. However, at high levels, it can project the hallucinated world onto others as well. They were all quiet for a bit before the girl shared that because the property was left unattended, someone may have come and settled within the ruined tower and started using hallucination. So does that mean if they get the person to leave, the hallucination will stop? Sumire-san's friend points out that if hallucination is the cause of all the bad happenings, how can they even get near the ruins? "I'll handle this myself," the collector says. "So please go ahead, you two." Our hero adds that he should be able to deal with the illusions using his skills. Heck, he might even be able to buy the skill from whoever's causing it. Sumire-san is convinced, but she still has to check and ask if he will be okay by himself. This reminds him of how she wanted to help back then. He smiles and assures her that he'll be fine and that her concern is more than enough for him. With that, he went ahead, activating his presence detection and sensitivity as he did so. The collector takes careful steps as he enters the sphere of the hallucinations domain. As soon as he did, he suddenly found himself in the middle of a forest, with rafflesia flowers everywhere. But what's even more interesting is that the tower ruin isn't there, instead a majestic castle stands before him. This is so weird, for an illusion to be this believable. Wait a minute, now that he's looking at it, the collector notices how the castle looks familiar. He fishes the map out of his pocket and realizes that the area used to be part of several small kingdoms. Right now, though, it's part of the Great Kanukashi of Nation. This was once the site of the Rappi Kingdom, though that was 5 centuries ago, he mutters to himself. But looking at his surroundings makes it hard to believe that all of this is part of a hallucination because it looks like he has just traveled back in time. It's impossible because only one skill can rewind time, which belongs to Ripley. Plus, it's a unique skill. With all things considered, the collector thinks that these are likely illusions, but the only question is who would be producing such a powerful hallucination? Hey, what are you doing here? A group of soldiers suddenly appears and questions the collector on what he was doing there. He turns, shocked to see that even they are just illusions, but they look far too real. You're not allowed to be here, they continue, becoming a bit more aggressive. Our MC, on the other hand, is surprised that they can even hold a conversation. He raised his hand in surrender and was about to apologize when they pointed their swords at him. Could you be remnants of the Rappy Kingdom? We should have captured all of you, said the soldiers, so our hero frantically tries to explain himself. You're mistaken, I simply have business with someone in that castle. Of course they don't believe him. What does a commoner like him have to do at the castle? No matter how they look at it, it's suspicious. Seize him and throw him into the dungeon, the leader of the guard says. Wait, did he say dungeon? If he gets captured, then it could lead the collector straight into the castle. Before he could speak again, one of the guards raised his weapon and bashed our hero in the head with it. From there he lost consciousness and was dragged inside the castle. There really is a dungeon inside the castle, and soon enough the rest of the prisoners start to stir upon hearing the guards dragging a new resident. The guard shoves the collector into a prison cell and then locks it. At least the collector's idea worked, because now he's inside the dungeon. This may be an illusion, but the feel of the ropes and the pain from being struck are too real. What a powerful illusion this is. Or maybe the source is just nearby. Hey kid, he hears a voice say. It's from the prisoners opposite his cell. They inform our hero that he's had bad luck running into those soldiers. Still, the cell he was thrown in is for minor offenders, so at best he'll be out in 2 weeks, unlike them. The collector stares and sees that there are a lot of prisoners there, and they're all part of the illusion too. Since he's here, we might as well ask for more information, no? He starts chatting up the other prisoners, asking why they were locked up. At first they laughed at him because this kid really is crazy enough to talk to people on death row. But the older men indulged our hero's request and shared that they're remnants of the Rappy Kingdom. After Rappy fell, the survivors became slaves, but those deemed dangerous or influential weren't enslaved. They were locked up here to be executed. After hearing that, it just confirmed what the collector already knew. So Rappy, huh? It's a small kingdom from 500 years ago. Just then a third voice joined them. Don't get so gloomy. The collector finally notices the older man tied up like the others. But what makes it different is that he could see the older man's skills, and among them is the level 28 hallucination. We're not just waiting to be executed, we're biding our time for a chance to break out, he adds. We lost the war, but as long as we're alive, there's no way we're giving up. Aha, finally! He found the source of the hallucination. It's this man. So how exactly should the collector proceed with this? Okay, so he can try and convince the older man to move on or negotiate to buy his hallucination skill. Either way, what's best is to earn this man's trust first. With that, he tries chatting the older man up. Are you also one of the Rappy's remaining people? To that, the latter narrates how he was a former general, the strongest in the army. I cut down beasts and men alike in battle. I was a hero of the country. But now that they have lost and were swallowed by the enemy, the older man is nothing more than a death row prisoner. Still, the collector tells him that he could still see the fighting spirit in his eyes, prompting him to ask why that is so. To that, the former general tells him that it's because he has too many things left undone. Cut to the much older days when he was still an operating general. One day, he was discussing plans to subjugate the high-level beasts threatening the northern defenses. After fulfilling this, he rides back to the city where a hero's welcome awaits him. During his visit then, he dropped by a noble's estate and had a chance encounter with a curious little girl. He asks the nobles if the girl was the daughter of this house, leaving the other nobles in distress as they explicitly told the girl not to go outside. Still, the girl was defiant and even asked the general if he was strong. Yeah, I am. I've slain over 10 advanced monsters and even taken an army general's head, is what he told the girl. Meanwhile, the nobles apologized profusely for the girl's behavior, saying she is a bit unusual. But then she said something that left a mark on the older man until now. Could you kill me as well? She asks. Oh, what's this? A little girl who wants to die at the hands of this general? That would be easy, but don't rush to die. Grow up first and see the wider world. The older man suggests. Then will you kill me once I've grown? She asks, extending her pinky finger toward the older man. The latter takes her pinky into his, saying he can't promise to kill her, but he will come and meet the girl. This is one of the many things he has yet to do to fulfill the promise he made on a whim to that girl. Back to the present. The older man relays how everything was taken from them, lamenting their misfortune in silence. From what the collector knows, Rappy was defeated in a war with another country, but that incident took place 5 centuries ago. Yet here was the older man, still talking as if it were the present. Suddenly the older man starts yelling about how he will escape from this place, no matter what, and restore Rappy to its former glory. Our hero can only hang his head knowing that telling the truth is painful, but it must be done. With that, he activates his status resistance skill and breaks free from his bonds. The other prisoners were stunned. How did he do that? Even the older man, as he asked the collector why his ropes got undone and the door unlocked, our hero tells him to step within the range of his status resistance. The older man did as he said, while the collector told him that there was a world he had to show him. Before the older man could even do anything, their surroundings whooshed, and that's when he finally saw the current state of things. His eyes widen as he takes in the surroundings, asking what he was seeing. The Rappi Kingdom fell 500 years ago, the collector began. This land is now the continent's largest nation, Kanukashiv. Huh, that's impossible. The older man was obviously in denial. It was too much for him to take this all in. But our hero patiently explains that the latter must have never realized his death and that his lingering regrets as a general bound his soul together with his skill to this place. The collector himself explains his part, sharing how he was asked by the land's owner to come here because things that should not exist were appearing when people entered this land. The soldiers, castle, prison, and everything else happening back then were nothing but an illusion. As he heard all that, the older man started to cry since there was nothing left from his era anymore. He collapses on his knees and cries. All I wanted was to protect my people, but because he possessed a skill like this, he's still here. Seeing him cry like that just made the collector wonder what he could really do. But at the very least, maybe he could free the older man from his curse. If you'll allow me, would you let me buy your hallucination skill? The collector asks. The older man raises his head. Buy his skill? Our hero explains that he possesses a skill that allows him to buy skills, which is why he runs a business collecting unwanted skills. The former general is hesitant because surely, a skill like his can only cause trouble for others. The collector points out that any skill can be useful depending on how it's used. If this skill caused the older man pain, then our hero would willingly take it. Please don't wear such a sorrowful expression because of your own skill at the very end. Silence followed before the older man spoke again. Are you saying you could put this cursed skill of mine to good use? To that the collector informs him first that there's a condition. His power requires a price, and since he can't give money to a spirit, he could only offer payment to the former general in another way. With that, the older man gets up and asks for just one request. There was a strange little girl and I promised I'd visit her once she grew up, but I couldn't fulfill it, he says. I suppose anyone from my era is probably long dead by now, but it got me wondering if that girl was able to live a life without regrets. With that, his only request to the collector is to say, I'm sorry, I couldn't keep my promise to the girl's grave if she has one. The collector replies that he'll look into it and asks for the girl's name. She was the daughter of a noble in the Rappi Kingdom, and her name was Kuyori. Upon hearing that name, the collector's eyes widen in shock. Meanwhile, somewhere else on the continent, a potted plant falls and hits someone's head. The girl acts nonchalant as if she does not have a bleeding bashed head, muttering about how the skill collector would scold her again since she died first thing at dawn today. And yes, this is the Kuyori the older man was referring to, and she has a level 1 immortality skill. Here at the land where, at the request of Sumire-san's friend, the collector ended up collecting the hallucination skill from the ghost of a general who haunted the area. But before they conducted the trade, the collector promised to pass on the message to Kuyori-san, while the older man asked the former to apologize on his behalf even if it's only at her gravestone. With that, the collector initiates the trade, and the old man surrenders his hallucination skill, along with a few other useful skills to our hero, in exchange for freeing the old general from the illusion and delivering the message to Kuyori-san. Finally, the old man's soul from 500 years ago ascended to the heavens while the collector watched. Soon, Sumire-san and her friend went to check the area, and to the latter's delight, they can finally enter the land safely now. She thanks the collector for saving them from so much trouble, asking if he's really not going to accept any reward. The collector is content enough since he already gained some skills. Now time to fulfill the old man's last wish, to pass the message to Kuyori-san. Now we move to someplace else. The last rays of sunlight illuminate the surrounding forest, while a couple of kids can be heard talking about the old mansion located within the area. From what they heard, the undead seem to live there. Soon enough, they reach the mansion gate, suddenly feeling reluctant to enter for fear that the undead may really be there. But it's just a rumor, right? Too bad, it's real. They finally spot the bloody axe along with the decapitated body of a woman just a few feet away from where they were standing. They both get scared, and even more so when the woman's head suddenly gets siphoned back to her body as if nothing even happened. It's real, the undead they speak of is real. They scrambled out of there just in time for Kuyori to see their retreating backs. She didn't even notice they were there at all. And yes, this is the very same Kuyori the old general was talking about. Not only does she have the immortality skill, but she also has eternal youth, oblivion, super strength, pain suppression, erudition, and farming among her skill set. Just then, Kuyori hears a familiar voice greet him, and when she turns to look, she's surprised to see the collector smiling back at her. It's been a long time after all. He saw everything that happened, commenting on how her last death was more intense than usual. Well, for Kuyori, it's just another day of her taking her own head by mistake. The two of them head inside, with the collector thinking about how she hasn't aged a day despite being over 500 years old. But then again, it's all thanks to her immortality. The collector asks her to stop for a while since her body and blood are covered in blood, suggesting she clean up and change first. But Kuyori points out that she'll die again soon anyway, so it's fine. Plus, it's not like anyone would actually come and see her. To that, the collector points out that he comes and visits her occasionally. Since Kuyori won't clean up after herself, he decides to do it for her, wiping the blood off her hair. While she allows him to do so, she's even thankful for the gesture. While cleaning her up, the collector can't help but compare this to nursing the elderly. Anyway, Kuyori is curious about why he suddenly came to visit, given how he doesn't do it often. To this, the latter answers that he was asked to deliver a message to her. Kuyori turns to him in surprise, because who would send her a message? She lives alone in the middle of the woods, away from people. The collector answers that it's from the spirit of a Rappi Kingdom general and reiterates what the old man asked to tell her, apologizing for not being able to keep his promise. Rap, huh? Kuyori doesn't remember it anymore, but there must be a place like that if he says so. The collector then asks if she does not remember the general, and the 500-year-old woman can only apologize. You see, her memories of the past are mostly gone. Plus, she fully believes that everyone who lived in her era has already left this world. Be that as it may, just hearing a familiar face at this age is enough to make her happy, so she thanks him for this. The two go outside, and as her thanks, Kuyori had decided to give him some of the vegetables from her garden. The collector looks around, impressed at the variety of crops around, though it's a bit bloody out there. Literally, since Kuyori's blood is everywhere. She just smiles, replying that it's good fertilizer. The collector had to tell her not to call her blood like that, but blood is a good fertilizer, you know? Looking at her like this, he can't help but comment on how much fun she's having right now. In answer to that, Kuyori points out that it's only possible thanks to the trade skill they did back then. Now that the collector remembers it. When he first met her, she was suffering terribly. Compared to now, she seems to be doing well. You see, 300 years ago, a 19-year-old collector came stumbling into the forest, absolutely lost. There were a lot of things he was scared of back then, like the undead. As he ventured deeper into the forest, worried and scared about his predicament, he just reminded himself how the day he got separated from his big sister was much scarier. Suddenly, he heard a loud bang and turned in the direction of the sound. That's when he saw it. Kuyori's mansion. He walks closer, approaching the gate, and that's when he sees Kuyori lying on her back and bloodied on the ground. This alarmed the young collector, but before he could do anything, he heard the woman muttering about how she failed to die again. The woman suddenly came back to life, rambling about how she couldn't understand the unique skill immortality despite conducting hundreds of years of research. Without meaning to, the collector activated his appraisal skill and discovered the woman has an immortality skill that's so crazy. What even is that? Suddenly she starts crying, lamenting about how she's so tired of living for far too long, yet she cannot die. What's even worse is that her brain is too full of memories. At this point, the collector couldn't help but speak, asking if she really wanted to die. Kuyori finally noticed him, asking if he was lost. What's more, she's even more surprised that he could actually see other people's skills. Upon hearing that, the collector introduces himself as someone who collects unwanted skills by trade, hoping maybe he could cut a deal with her. Of course, Kuyori instantly jumped at this chance and the negotiation began. But alas, the collector couldn't buy her immortality skill. Why? Wait, is her immortality a unique skill? While he was busy thinking about all of this, Kuyori suddenly started to act differently, asking who he was. This shocked the collector as he had to remind her who he was and that they had just talking a few seconds ago. But Kuyori couldn't remember, apologizing because her mind is too full from living too long. She starts to stress, and the collector wonders if he could help ease her suffering even if he can't buy her immortality. He's got a stock of skills, but what could he trade them for to help her? Think, there must be something for her. Now back to the present, Kuyori is all smiles as she tells him that it's thanks to the oblivion skill he sold back then that she was able to organize the memories in her mind. That's right, he sold her the oblivion skill. This is actually a negative skill that worsens memory loss, but at high levels it lets the user choose which memories to erase. Kuyori claims that ever since then life has become easier for her, but she still wishes to die someday. The collector apologizes because he still can't help her with that, given that his trade skill is still immature. At level 1 he still can't acquire unique skills, which is why he also couldn't buy Ripley's unique skill Return by Death either. Still, he refuses to give up, vowing to raise his level so that someday he can buy Kuyori's immortality skill. She turns to him, saying that despite selling her oblivion all those years ago, he still visits in the hope that he could acquire her immortality skill. She suddenly looks glum because unlike her, someday he will also die. With that, she turns away from him, saying that he shouldn't burden himself with the likes of her. The collector is taken aback by what she just said, but it's not like he wanted her to say that. In the first place, the reason why he wants to raise his level is to catch up to his sister. This is something he's doing for himself. That's why the collector speaks up and clarifies his intent. He's determined to resolve this, and until he can buy her immortality, he promises not to die. Furthermore, he also promises to spend his days with her until she's finally able to die. Kuyori was silent for a second longer before she asked if he was being serious. The latter says he is, and asks her not to say things as if she has given up. His answer leaves her flustered. So okay, fine. She gets it. Just stop it with those sweet words because he's about to make her die of embarrassment. Kuyori bashes her head against the wall. But the collector is more surprised at how she just made an immortality joke. Well, even if this is really for himself, Improving his trade skill makes him glad that he can be of use to others. Now then, since they got the serious stuff aside, the collector suggests they visit the town for once. In fact, he even knows a certain restaurant that's quite good. But if Kuyori prefers some other things, then it's fine, no pressure. Surprisingly, she's actually down for it, but only for today, and that's good enough for him. Meanwhile, back in town, the restaurant owners ask Sumire to deliver the tray of food to the table. As the latter fetches it, she looks around, commenting how the collector hasn't come today. At that, the older woman couldn't help but tease Sumire, asking if she misses him and if she wants him to visit. But Sumire says it's not like that at all. She explains how the collector recently helped a friend of hers who was in trouble. Then there's also the time when he helped with Sumire's negative skills too. She can't help but see how dependable and considerate he is, which is why she admires him. The collector has become someone Sumire can rely on, but too bad, the auntie is not interested in that at all. Sumire couldn't figure out why the older woman looked so disappointed. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. The collector is at their door and Sumire welcomes him with a smile. But just as she was about to call him, Sumire stopped mid-sentence when she saw that he brought a beautiful woman with him, Kuyori. Kuyori looks around asking if this was the place the collector was talking about, but the latter is more concerned about her, reminding her to be careful not to die carelessly and cause trouble. Sumire, on the other hand, is speechless. Just who is she? The collector and Kuyori walk into the restaurant together, much to Sumire's surprise. The younger looks at Kuyori's antique dress and long silver hair and can't help but think how beautiful she is. The collector asks her if there are any seats available, snapping Sumire back to reality. But her curiosity got the better of her as she asked who the collector is with Kuyori casting a glance in her direction. Oh, now that he realizes it, the collector introduces Sumire to Kuyori-san, a longtime acquaintance of his. Sumire often finds the collector by himself, so it was quite unusual for him to bring someone along. Sumire introduces herself to Kuyori-san, and the latter does the same, adding that she has been taking care of the collector. At that, the collector points out that he's actually the one looking after her, wiping blood, washing clothes, and that sort of thing. Kuyori-san gave him the look, taunting him to say that again. While the two talk, Sumire can't help but notice how happy he looks. The two ate together, and before long they were done with their meal. Compared to before, Kuyori-san looks much happier thanks to the delicious meal they ate. She even told the collector that they should come again sometime. The latter smiles, pleased to see that she enjoyed it. As they were about to walk out the door, Auntie told Sumire that it was almost time, so she could go now. At the mention of the time, the collector stops in his tracks and asks about it. Sumire tells him that she has farm work after this. You see, this year is potato season, and it's pretty abundant, so the farm is short-handed. This time, it's Kuyori-san who turns at the mention of potatoes. The latter asks if they have potato fields here. In fact, they do. Suddenly, there's a twinkle in Kuyori-san's eyes as she tells Sumire that harvesting potatoes is actually pretty fun. The younger girl is surprised because does Kuyori-san have experience harvesting potatoes before? The collector chimes in, remembering that his friend's hobby is gardening in her yard. Kuyori-san affirms, saying she loses track of time whenever she does it. Again, Sumire is even more shocked because she never expected that of someone so refined and elegant. Anyway, all this potato gardening talk got Kuyori-san wondering if Sumire will allow her to help harvest potatoes. The collector thinks that's a good idea since they don't have any plans anyway. Sumire asks them if they're sure about it because if they are, then that would really help her out. Just like that, the three of them made their way to the potato garden. While harvesting the crops, Sumire thanks the collector for helping out. For him, it was no big deal since moving his body like this was pretty good sometimes. As a token of appreciation, Sumire promises to treat him to some potatoes later. Oh, the collector is surprised at that because what about Sumire's family? She tells him that her mother is out while her siblings are at school today. Oh, those kids are already at the age where they're going to school now, huh? Just then Kuyori-san appears, showing the collector a big potato. Such fine potatoes, right? She then tells him to get up and start digging. The collector points out that he is working, you know? It's just that Kuyori-san operates on a different level. Both the collector and Sumire watch as Kuyori-san works the fields at an amazing speed thanks to her super strength and cultivation skills. Sumire can't help but say how Kuyori-san looks like she's completely used to this kind of work. Well, it's only natural that she's good at this. The potatoes they're harvesting right now were her creations. What an insane lore drop. Even the collector himself never knew about that. The only thing she regrets is how potato flowers used to be white. They were much prettier when they were still white. Wait, what does she mean by used to be? Suddenly they hear flapping from a few feet away. The trio turns their attention to the direction of the sound and sees a flying monster looming over the potatoes. The collector immediately asks Sumire if monsters frequent this area. She says normally they don't, but given how they pulled up so many potatoes at once, the smell must have attracted them. Kuyori-san, on the other hand, remains unfazed. She walks up to the monster and volunteers to handle this one. The collector then moves Sumire out of the way. He knows Kuyori-san will be fine given her particular set of skills, but the way she fights though is a different concern. Somehow he's got a bad feeling about this. True enough, the collector's hunch was right. The monster bird went straight to pierce Kuyori-san's gut with its beak. Of course, her immortality skill takes effect, so she doesn't really feel anything, nor is she dead. With the bad for the bird, it's stuck. Kuyori-san uses this chance to grab its beak and literally rip the monster in two with her super strength. Sumire cries out, both in shock and confusion, because didn't Kuyori-san just get stabbed? Sumire rushes to her asking if she's okay, and the latter answers that she's fine, she doesn't even have a scratch. True, but she does have a stab wound, which is worse. Sumire is worried because Kuyori-san is not okay at all. She has her handkerchief out and starts cleaning up the poker-faced centuries-old woman. Seeing how worried the younger girl was, Kuyori-san couldn't help but comment on how kind and thoughtful Sumire is, just like the collector. The latter brushes it off, saying she hasn't even done much yet. To that, Kuyori-san agrees and claims it's only natural, given how she and the collector have lived different lengths of time. Still, despite only meeting today, Sumire was still kind to Kuyori-san. Regardless of ability, that attitude of kindness toward others is the same. What she said made Sumire contemplate how she has admired the collector, but maybe she also has grown closer to him. After they're done picking potatoes, the trio heads to Sumire's house, where they happily eat potatoes. Speaking of, the collector remembers something. Didn't Kuyori-san mention earlier that she created this type of potato? The latter affirms that it's true, so this time it's Sumire's turn, asking if Kuyori-san is a farmer. Kuyori-san says she's not, explaining that gardening is just a way to pass the centuries. Usually she conducts modest research, which brings a little income. Even her savings from the days when she was once a noble are nearly gone. So to earn money, she brought her cultivated potato seeds to the agricultural guild. The guild was astonished at the red-flowered potatoes, and they became popular. Wait, back up. Sumire has another question. Aren't potato flowers red? Kuyori-san clarifies that the flowers used to be white and that she preferred those white blossoms and cultivated them. However, each time she died in her garden, they were bathed in her blood, thus turning the blossoms red. Wait, what? So when she told the collector before how her blood is a good fertilizer, she wasn't kidding back then? The collector eyes the potato he's eating with wide eyes. If what Kuyori-san said was true, then the rarity of the blossom color alone would not explain the potato's popularity. Most likely the taste must have improved beyond ordinary potatoes. This also means that her blood, affected by the immortality skill, must have a unique effect. If the world found out, it would cause serious trouble. Sumire, on the other hand, just realized a different thing. Now that she thought about it, this potato that they're eating has the same name as Kuyori-san, which means it's not a coincidence. Kuyori-san tells her that she's correct and relays how the guild asked her back then for a cultivar name. She didn't have a name in mind since she only wanted to cultivate it, thus the guild decided to name it after her. So now they have the Kuyori sweet potato. What she didn't expect was for the name to spread far and wide. Now she just wishes that they would change it. The collector doesn't understand why it upsets her. Isn't it an honor to have something named after you? As soon as the words left his mouth, both Kuyori-san and Sumire threw him a look. Obviously he does not understand a maiden's heart. Sumire jumps in agreement, saying that being named after a flower would be lovely. But for a potato? That's something else. Ah crap, the collector didn't mean it like that. Well, to defuse the situation, he quickly apologizes, saying he thought its popularity among farmers was something to be proud of. Besides, he loves Kuyori sweet potatoes. With those words alone, the collector shifted the mood. Kuyori-san smiles, adding that it may not be so bad after all. Suddenly, the door opens and in come Sumire's siblings. Paji asks their big sister if she's done digging potatoes, while Kasumi is surprised to see the collector there. Sumire welcomes her siblings and Kuyori-san eyes them curiously, finally meeting the former siblings for the first time. The collector tells the two that the harvest is almost complete, leaving the kids disappointed. But that feeling soon went away when they saw Kuyori-san. Kasumi asks who she is, so Kuyori-san levels with them and introduces herself. Oh, the two beam because she has the same name as the potato. Okay, from now on they'll call her Potato One-ichan. Based on her reaction, both the collector and Sumire can see that Kuyori-san didn't take to that. Kuyori-san steps away from the children, thinking that it's better if they rename the potato after all. Meanwhile, Sumire scolds her siblings for saying something rude. The collector only smiles because it looks like emotional damage does not regenerate even with immortality. Before they noticed it, the day was over. The collector and Kuyori-san head back, but before they go, Sumire invites the latter to visit again. Kuyori-san says they will, then Sumire whispers to her, apologizing for intruding on her date with the collector today. Kuyori-san is stunned. The collector sees them still talking until Kuyori-san joins him. He asks what the two were talking about, but she tells him it's none of his concern. Suddenly, they see someone approach them in a hurry. This person was frantically looking for the collector all over. It was Meikil. The latter is in a hurry because it's about that matter. Meikil tells him to come with him right now. Both the collector and Kuyori-san watch Meikil as he tries to catch his breath. Meanwhile, Meikil is going off about how he couldn't find the collector. He's been looking for him everywhere. But more importantly, can the collector come with him right now? Something happened in a sort of town that might be connected to that matter. As far as the collector remembers, Makil has been gathering intel about his sister, which only means that he found a clue that led to his sister. But then again, the collector is with Kuyori-san today. He casts a sideward glance at her, and she seems to understand. She tells him that she may not know what it is, but from the look of it, it must be urgent, no? With that, she tells him to go. She already had her fun for today. He apologizes for taking his leave so suddenly and hopes she can return home safely. With that, he runs along with Mikil, but not before telling her that he'll take her up on another day. Kuyori-san watches the two leave in a hurry, and now that she's by herself, she can't help but suddenly feel so lonely. Back to the collector and Mikil. They rushed headfirst to the place Mikil was talking about. He even used all his available skills to make their travel faster, and yet it was nighttime when they arrived. Mikil leads him to the back alleys in the district, a place he doesn't usually go. Soon they reach the place, a rundown casino. Mikil squats to the ground and talks to one of the rats, explaining how this little one told him something just this morning. Apparently last night at this casino, someone wrecked the place. They did all this damage in a single night. A single person did this much damage in a single night. They head inside and see someone slumped on the floor. The latter asks who's there before informing them that there's not a single coin left and that the place is closed. This person recognizes Makil and stands, asking if he's investigating this matter already. With that, Makil asks the man what happened. The man, a dealer, tells them that one woman did this. She relayed how the woman showed up here out of nowhere last night, hiding her shining blonde hair under a hood and wearing a crimson dress. Despite the disguise, it was obvious that she was a pretty striking woman. Wait, did he just say blonde hair and red dress? This woman wore the same clothes as his sister. Anyway, back to the story. The dealer continues that the woman claimed she had only ever lost to one person. To defeat that person, she wants to become stronger, and gambling is her only battlefield. Well, if that's the case, then this casino is the perfect place for her. The dealer starts shuffling the cards, adding that every dealer here possesses high levels of skills like psychology, precision, movement, and oratory. This delighted the woman. If he's not stronger than her, then there's no point in talking. With that said, she suggests they test their skills. She raises her index finger, and suddenly a sphere appears out of nowhere, singling them out from everybody else. The dealer looks around, frantic, asking what it was. The girl says that the activation conditions for her skill are now met. Moving forward, she asks how much each of them should wager. For her, she bets everything she owns and tells the dealer that he must stake something worthy as well. Just like that, every dealer in the casino lost to her, which is how they ended up like this. Makil notes how the woman used persuasive speech, encouraging dangerous wagers with some kind of manipulation. He turns to the collector, saying how the woman seems to possess some sort of unusual skill. The collector agrees, but what's even more concerning for him is how she said she wanted to grow stronger in order to defeat that person. Could that person they were referring to be his sister? Looking back, it was the same expression the saint used when she spoke of his sister. This is the first time Makil heard of that. When the rats told him about her appearance, he thought it might be the one he's been searching for, which is why he called the collector in a hurry. But hearing this now, it may be a completely different person. The collector thinks so too, since the way she uses her skill is pretty chaotic. But it makes the collector wonder if someone is trying to defeat his sister. The collector has a bad feeling about this. He then asks the dealer if he has any idea where the woman is headed. The latter says he doesn't know because she vanished before sunrise. Makil checks if she left any traces, but there are none, so it won't be easy to follow her. He tells the collector that she will try tracking this woman. He'll set rats in casinos across the regions. The collector thanks him for this. And while they're at it, Makil notices how, during the Saint incident, those involved in this were tied to hostility and aggression, warning the collector to be careful. With nothing else to do, he promises to. Just like that, the collector and Makil went their separate ways. Since the collector came all this way to a distant town, he decided to conduct some business. He walks around appraising people, searching for unwanted skills. But from the looks of it, he has hardly seen any unnecessary skills here, given how everyone has pretty useful skills. What's concerning him is this bad feeling in his gut ever since he saw that casino. He stops at a nearby park for a little while, thinking that maybe it's best to go back to his base and rest for now. Makil's warning to him echoes in his mind, and even the collector admits how he cannot shake this uneasy feeling. His instinct skill is practically screaming at him. If something is about to happen to him, he does not want to involve everyone by returning to the town. He gets up thinking that it's better to distance himself from any town. He grabs the map from his backpack and scans the area. If he leaves this place, there's an open plain beyond here. Maybe going on a walk will help calm his mind. And that's exactly what the collector did. Soon he reached the open fields, but despite the serene scenery, this uneasy feeling in his chest would not fade. This is the first time something like this has happened. Just when he was about to ponder more over what's causing this, he notices something in his periphery. The collector turns to his right and sees a girl standing underneath a tree. He stopped dead in his tracks, eyes wide at this girl, whose face he could not see under the hat. But a woman alone out here without even a weapon? Plus, he completely failed to sense her. It's like the girl has no presence at all. No, he can clearly see her. And yet despite using his presence detection skill, he still cannot sense her presence. The girl finally speaks, saying how it's been a while, and asking if the collector has been well. The latter almost finds it funny to hear her call this a while when in reality countless years have already passed. And yet he still greets his sister, who finally shows her face. His big sister greets him casually, saying it's been a while since they last met. The collector, on the other hand, is feeling incredulous. She calls this a while. Heck, he had to stress to her that countless years have passed since they last saw each other. The former feigns hurt at how he's acting toward his sister, even making a face, joking about how sad she feels. The collector can only stare back at her because his big sister is just like she used to be. Her appearance and gestures are the same. Anyway, she actually heard something interesting from the vineyard, that it looks like things went nicely between him and the saint. At the mention of the saint, the picture of her smiling sadly flashed in his mind. Yeah, things went well between them, and thanks to that, he told his big sister how the saint ended up blowing herself. Listening to that, his sister thinks differently, saying the saint must have gone out of control. After all she did was ask the latter to keep an eye on her brother. There's no use crying over spilled milk, so just like that, his big sister just brushed it all under the rug with a simple sorry and bashful smile. The collector is in disbelief yet again because how can she smile like that? The saint gave her life for his big sister. But this also just proves that his sister is someone who can speak so heartlessly while smiling. More important than that, he asks her one of the things that's been bugging him since earlier. Why come see him now? Does it have something to do with the casino incident? Huh? What is he even talking about? More importantly, the collector seems to have forgotten what she told him before. Didn't she tell him that she would come again to steal his skills and kill him? She's pleased to share that she has refined her plunder skill quite a bit, which is why she wants to test it. With that said, she tells him that he has come to collect his skills. Currently, he has 23 level 30 skills in stock, with his control skill at level 10 and his original trade skill still at level 1. Oh no, so his sister really came to steal his skills for real. He unknowingly takes a step back as he asks what she wants to do with all those skills. He heard from the saint before that his sister plans on world domination. Is that true? To that she clarifies that world domination is actually just a stepping stone because what she really wants to do is raise the level of her plunder skill. She smiles sweetly then, saying everything she does is to obtain the collector's only skill. Hell, she might plunder the entire world before she could do so. This just makes the collector even more wary because his sister is that obsessed with his only skill. He remains calm and tells her that she still hasn't answered the important question. Why is she hell-bent on his skill? For all he knows, she can do anything and possess countless skills already. His sister doesn't believe so. After all, she still cannot take his brother's only skill. As she said this, she turned as if she were about to go, with her hat falling to the ground. The collector knows she's about to attack. So shaken as he was, he allocates every skill slot to defensive skills. Suddenly, something wrapped around the collector, coiling itself around him, causing him to fall to his knees. This feeling, he knows this. It's the same ominous chill he felt earlier. And then a realization just hit him. Has he been caught in one of his sister's skill effects all this time? Crap, this is bad. He can't do anything and remains on his knees. He should counter using his other skills, but no, as it dawned upon him that his skills, status resistance and mental resistance, should be active already. Oh ho! His big sister claps, impressed at how he's still holding out. Most people would already be unconscious by now. The collector is barely holding on, racking his brain trying to figure out what kind of skill his sister is using. He tries using his appraisal skill, but unfortunately everything's blocked out. He can't see it. Is she hiding it with a concealment skill? Or maybe she possesses a great relic like the one Saint used. His sister walks closer, saying how situations like this are really advantageous. She's also aware that right now he must be thinking of many countermeasures. Still, while under this mental attack, can he defend against her other attack? Right now, his sister is just a few feet in front of him, as the collector continues to struggle. This is bad. At this rate, she'll take everything, both his skills and his life, and she's about to do so now, reaching her hand to touch him. Looking down on him, his sister can't help but comment on how this scene reminds her of something. That piques the collector's interest because, what did she mean by that? To his surprise, she starts ruffling his hair as she goes on about how he wouldn't remember. This just made him even more puzzled because just what is she talking about? To that, she tells him that back in their village, she's the only one who remembers the truth, huh? Well, since his centuries of achievements, along with his life, will be lost soon, she decides to tell him everything, seeing how sorry she feels for him. So here's the truth. Skills are divine gifts bestowed upon people from birth. They have become the norm and are woven into daily life, given that they're abundant in this world. When she was 5, their parents took her to the appraiser, where it was revealed that she had the skill Plunder. According to the appraiser, it's a cursed rare skill, and she's the only one who possesses this skill in the whole world. Of course, no one is pleased to hear that, most especially their parents. They blew the gasket, unable to accept such findings. After all, who wouldn't be mad? They took the trouble to bring an appraiser from the capital to their home only to find out that their daughter ended up with nothing but a notorious plunder skill? This cannot be. While her mother broke down in tears, her father was fuming. He even pulled the little girl's collar, angry that with such a skill it's almost a given that they will also be treated like criminals. To prevent that from happening, her father made her promise never to tell anyone of her skill. She easily agrees with a smile and doesn't stir up a fuss. You see, from the moment she was born, plunder was her only skill. She read about the skill in books and has come to know the Plunder King and the Fallen Hero, both of whom used the same skill she has now to steal allies' abilities and sought to bring ruin to the world. So it really is a cursed skill. Every known wielder of plunder in history was a villain. Despite this depressing information, she closes the book and doesn't let it get to her. This is fine. She has hidden the talent well, even from the villagers. Besides, right now, there's something else she's looking forward to. Her baby brother, the future collector, will be born soon. That thought alone comforts her. Since she's going to become a big sister from now on, she needs to pull herself together and stop worrying about her only skill. She's already excited thinking about how she will play with him a lot. And then finally her baby brother was born. Looking at him, he got his mother's jet black hair. And yet he has the exact same face as his big sister. The latter couldn't believe the two lookalikes, but their mother assured her that she did. Knowing that made his sister so happy. But of course, their father had to cut that little moment of happiness short. Considering what happened with their eldest, their father suggests they should request a skill appraisal early, given how some skills can determine how someone lives. Her mother agrees, and the mention of skill appraisal has the girl a little worried. But she made up her mind. Even if her little brother ends up not being blessed with a skill like hers, she promises not to reject him as their parents did. After all, she's his big sister. She will be kind to him. The same appraiser came to their house this time to appraise the boy. Their parents greet the former and check the crib to see the baby, who is the future collector. His big sister also watches from the corner while the cleric does their job. The ceremony didn't take long as the appraiser revealed that the child possesses a multitude of skills. Drawing, precision, memory, astronomy, archaeology, natural history, art, medicine, pharmacy, and trade, a total of 10 skills. Their parents are joyful. It's like they hit the jackpot, and their youngest has been blessed by the gods. The appraiser themselves have never even heard of a skill called trade before, and more than that, being blessed with this many excellent skills is extremely rare. This piece of information makes them all the more gleeful. Their youngest has so many skills in arts and academics, a prodigy that the world has yet to see. As if that doesn't sting enough, their parents had to remind the eldest that, unlike her little brother is blessed with skills. The parents were already celebrating, knowing the future of their youngest would be bright. It's too bad for the eldest sister, but with the boy, everything will be so much better. That day, the collector's sister learned one truth about the world: that people's skills are not equal from birth. While his baby brother is sleeping, she walks up to his crib and brushes back his hair from his forehead. As soon as her fingers touched his forehead, she could suddenly see his skills. With just her around, she admits that she's jealous of her little brother. Wearing a pained expression, she finds this so frustrating and unfair. Why God? Why did he give her a brother like this? Suddenly, she's reminded of what she read about the Plunder King and the Fallen Hero, and how they could not accept the talented ones close to them. At that moment, she finally understands how the plunder skill is used. She puts her hand over his head and plunders all of his skills, save for one, his trade skill. One skill is stuck, she can't take it. She keeps her hand on him, desperate to get it, but since it's stuck, how is she going to do that? Is her plunder skill not strong enough? She looks out the window and sees the townspeople living their own lives, and from there an idea came to her. If she steals more skills from others and refines plunder, then maybe she can finally steal trade. No? With that, the whole truth is revealed to the collector. With her hand over her face, she finally says she can steal the collector's trade. So back to the present, his sister continues that after she left the village taking everything but his trade, she went on to steal skills from hundreds, even thousands of others. If anything, she should thank him, because if not for him, she wouldn't know how to use plunder. The collector is speechless after knowing everything, as he has a hard time processing that the skills his sister has were originally his. He's in disbelief, but she tells him it's the truth. Distressed, he asks why their parents acted as if they didn't know then. His sister explains that their parents and the appraiser knew the truth, which she finds troublesome. So the first thing she did was take the appraiser's appraisal skill and kill them using the precision, medicine, and pharmacy skills she took from the collector. Then, using that appraisal skill, his sister searched among the villagers for a memory manipulation skill and stole it, thus tampering with their parents' memories. She also altered the villagers' memories as well, so it never caused a commotion. Again, she takes this all lightly, smiling because she said too much. Unlike her, the collector has just come to realize something else. For all his life, he had only had the trade skill, which he didn't even know how to use. So was all of his suffering and misery because of his sister all along? Or maybe it was his fault that his kind sister had become like this. As if she read his mind, his sister tells him up front how much she hates him. She cannot be satisfied unless she takes everything from him and kills him. Admittedly, she also hates herself for envying him, even though she wanted to love him as her little brother. It was not lost on the collector how her sister looked as if she were about to cry when she said the last part. But then again, maybe it was just his imagination. He had always wanted to meet his sister and learn the truth. And the truth of the matter is, his sister was the same as him. She was not blessed with skills and was just a human being. He understands that pain, but he draws the line at killing so many people and stealing their skills. Those are crimes. He's still bound by his sister's skill, and he's reminded again how, at this rate, all his skills will be taken, and he'll be killed. He just can't shake off this unknown attack. For a moment, he wonders if this is how he dies, by his sister's hands. Well, maybe that won't be so bad. After all, he has lived long enough. Just then, every person he has helped pops into his mind, from Kuyori-san to Sumire and even Auntie from the shop and the priest. That's right, there are still many things he must do. As a skill collector, he cannot allow his skills to be taken, especially since he has an impressive inventory. But that doesn't ignore the fact that he cannot defeat his sister at his current level. He needs to think of a way to escape without being killed. So far, he still cannot grasp the nature of her attack. But what he knows is that it's targeting his mind. With that said, if it's a mental attack, then disrupting the caster's emotions may weaken it. Now, if only he could provoke her. Wait a minute, didn't his sister say that she envies him? Finally, he finds a way to disrupt her. Her voice pulls him out of his reverie, asking if he finds it frustrating that all those hundreds of years of effort will be lost here. But if he says, "Sister, I'm sorry," then she might forgive him. Circling back to his last thought, the collector has an idea. If his sister is really jealous, then pointing it all out should hurt her the most. Instead of succumbing to her, he tells her that her pride is way too great. He chuckles, finding it stupid how all she wanted to do was to get rid of her inferiority complex toward him. As soon as he said that, the pressure around him vanished. Her sister is displeased and does not find him cute, but this is all the chance the collector needs to activate multiple skills at once. He uses his intuition, reflex, jump, and quickstep all in one go at max level. In the blink of an eye, he's many ways away from his sister. Alright, he managed to make an opening, but his sister's attack can still reach him. He starts running further, focusing on using his quickstep and jump so he can put as much space between them as possible. On top of that, he uses concealment at max level to hide his presence. With this, it should be enough, right? His sister, on the other hand, conjures something, muttering about how she no longer needs a cute little brother. His big sister attacks him with her black flames, the fire almost catching up to him despite his speed. The collector turns in disbelief at how she could find his location. To deter the attack, he uses level 30 earth magic to block off the flames, but even with that, he could hear her in his mind, saying that he can't even stall for time with what he just did. Her dark flames burst through the earth walls he built, once again hot on his tail. This terrified the collector as he started to run faster to get farther away from her. He's already using quickstep, jump, and concealment at the same time. He was so focused on what's ahead, desperate to get away, that he almost slammed right into a giant earth wall. Crap! His escape route is blocked. He quickly looks around trying to find a way out of this. Since it's his sister, there's no way he can destroy this wall. Turning back or running around would be exactly what she wants him to do. In that case, the collector will just climb over this wall. Thankfully, he also has a climbing skill in his arsenal, but after just a few steps, he notices a spear take form from the wall and start extruding toward him. Whoa! Earth spears? But wait, their accuracy is not that high, so he can still avoid them with the skills he has. As he keeps an eye out below, the collector notes how his sister had been using precise attacks with overwhelming power this whole time. If the earth spears are inaccurate, is it possible that he has finally moved beyond his sister's range? This made him even more determined to escape no matter what. He climbs much quicker, almost reaching the top, and for a hot minute we were all hopeful. Back to his sister, she smiles, amused at her little brother's naivete. Because even if he hides himself with concealment, his presence does not disappear. And even if he moves beyond her appraisal range, she could still feel him. Heh. With a smile, she tells him that he's not getting away. Back to our MC. The collector is almost at the top of the wall. He's already thinking that once he crosses it, he'll combine quickstep, jump, and wind magic to get far away in one go. Suddenly, the climbing hold he was clinging to disappeared out of thin air, and so did the giant earth wall. Now the collector finds himself suspended in midair, with nothing else to hold on to. His sister, who's still in the ground, says that if he's not going around the wall and can dodge the earth spears, then she doesn't really need the wall, does she? Gravity does its thing, and he starts to fall. With nowhere to stand and cling to, he's completely exposed. Crap, he'll be back within his sister's range. He was just thinking of ways to get out of this situation when he saw the familiar black flames coming toward him at full speed. Ah, he's too late. The dark flames completely engulfed the collector while he was in midair. Flashback to when they were much younger. One night, the collector went to bed early. He was already asleep when his sister announced that she was finally done with her drawing. She finished late, but as promised, she will still read him the skill book and they should sleep together. When she turned, that's when she finally noticed the collector was already fast asleep. Seeing his peaceful face, she sits right next to him with a sigh. She extends both of her hands out and wraps them around his neck, but the moment she does so, she pulls back and tucks him in with a blanket, wishing her little brother a good night. At present, his big sister looks up to the sky, noting how his little brother's presence has disappeared. So her magic struck him down in midair, huh? That's too bad. She wanted to steal his trade skill first, but she ended up killing him instead. With that, she turns, wondering what she's supposed to do next. As soon as the dark flames came in contact with the collector, there was an explosion that sent debris flying everywhere. His sister walked over to where most of the debris fell and noticed her little brother's severed left arm. And here she thought her beloved dear brother would not die from something like this. She walks over it, wondering what to do next before turning away. Welp, his body has really burnt away, no? She hadn't even been walking that long when she came across a wagon with an elderly man and most likely his daughter. She calls out to the collector's sister, warning her that it's dangerous to walk alone. Her father thinks so too, offering the latter a ride on their wagon. The unsuspecting victims don't know that they're face to face with the devil incarnate herself, and thanks to her appraisal skill, she could see these two's gifts. The girl has 3 low-level gifts: concealment, eavesdropping, and memory. The elderly man also has a few gifts under his belt: luck, regeneration, and cooking. The collector's sister only stares back at them with a smile, her plunder already at unfathomable levels. Then she takes a step forward and taps the girl's hand, enumerating both the girl's and her grandfather's skills. Obviously, the two are confused as the evil sister walks away. They both stare at her retreating figure. And that's when the other girl feels funny. She feels as if something slipped away. But before she could explore more of that feeling, the collector's sister destroyed the carriage, instantly killing the poor elderly man and the girl. She continued walking as if she hadn't committed a heinous act. Well, it's too late to change how she lives now. Well, maybe she'll just go on with conquering the world as planned. With that, she continued walking toward the open plains without ever looking back. Meanwhile, back in the city at the restaurant, a flower falls to the floor. Auntie asks Sumire what happened, and the latter explains that the stem of one of the flowers she arranged just snapped. Auntie walked over to get a closer look and became worried. Oh no, this feels like a bad sign. Then back at Kuyori-san's estate, she noticed something while sweeping the yard. The fortune-bringing butterfly has died. Even Kuyori-san thinks this is an ominous sign. At the church where the pervert priest and sexy nun worked, the cross at the altar fell. The nun rushes to where the priest is, concerned because she heard a loud noise. The man of the Lord picked up the cross, also worried. For the church's sacred symbol to collapse like this, that's not a good sign. The sister offers to fix it, but the priest advises against it, as he puts the cross back on the wall by himself. They both stare at it, and he says a little prayer asking the gods and goddesses to watch over and protect them. Now back to the field where the collector died. Night has fallen. Chapter 20.1, End. There's a certain patch of grass where the ground started to crumble, and a hole appeared. From this hole, panting noises can be heard as a much younger collector emerges. He's alive. As it turns out, he used a multitude of skills to pull this one off: concealment, toughness, barrier, regeneration, and strangely, level 1 rejuvenation. He looks up to see that his big sister has already left. Of course she did. It's already been a week since that incident. Somehow, he managed to deceive her eyes by hiding himself underground, but what choice did he have? Back then, his sister targeted him by sensing his presence. Using concealment at its highest level meant nothing. As he was about to fall to the ground, he was racking his brain, wondering if there were any skills in his arsenal that he could use. Wait a minute, he has a secret card among his collected skills: rejuvenation. This skill allows him to change his body's age to whatever youth he desires when set into a skill slot. The youthful skill he once sold to that worried grandfather only makes one appear younger. The rejuvenation skill, on the other hand, actually restores the body's youth. So what he did was push his body to the youngest state as much as possible with this skill. Despite that, it was still not enough. He knew his sister would become suspicious if his presence suddenly vanished, so he needed to make it look like he'd been hit. Right before the black flames actually reached him, he used his wind magic to sever his own left arm before activating his rejuvenation skill. With that, he came crashing directly underground, where he remained for a whole week. As he cut his own arm off, the collector hoped that his sister would mistakenly believe that he was dead. Meanwhile, he used his concealment to completely erase the tiny presence of his infant body. He made sure to hide underground well until his older sister left. Well, it's thanks to the regeneration skill that his life is no longer in danger. But he did lose his left arm, though. He looks up at the moon before noticing that dawn is now on the horizon. Looking at the brightening horizon, he believes that his big sister should think he's dead. If she discovers he survived, she may come to kill him again. For now, it would be wiser not to return to his base town and remain hidden. A much younger collector grabs his locket and opens it to look at the shared picture he has with his sister. Now that he has finally learned the truth about his sister's past, he understands the pain of not being blessed with skills. However, he has encountered countless people who continued confronting their own skills instead of surrendering to them. What his sister is doing is still wrong, which is why we have to make sure no more people lose their skills or their lives. He vows to collect his sister's life himself. So this is a fresh journey starting with nothing but himself. But first, he needs to get some clothes first.